Hello. 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 It's me. I'm back. We are talking about politics today. But I did do one of the first Minecraft self-care things. I'm still getting the hang of it. I don't know how it went, but if you guys are interested in that, check it out. It's gonna have its own playlist soon. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna be building up this whole kind of world. I'm gonna prioritize things based on how you should prioritize things in your life. So far, we're stuck in the I need food and shelter stage of prioritizing, which, of course, is a very basic need. I think most of us have covered, but it's Minecraft starting out. What are you gonna do? Anyways, today we have lots to go over. There's lots going on in politics. I'm going to my screen on real quick. I forget to do this every time. But we do have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about. Before I get started, let's get into the silly stuff. That way we can, all kind of relax a little bit. And of course, when I say silly stuff, I mean this. Oh, hold on. It's in the Minecraft category rather than the politics category. Thank you for notifying me. Oopsies. Oh, that's so funny. All right, it says it was updated, but might have to reload. Oh. Nice. Okay, we're good. All right, anyways, let's get into the silly stuff first.
Anybody to stand up and try to cancel me.
Santos free.
Did I embellish my resume? Yes, I did. And I'm sorry.
Congressman George Santos has been facing a storm of controversy amid reports that he fabricated key details about his education, work experience, heritage, and more.
These are blatant lies. Do you have no shame?
Tulsi, I can say the same thing about the Democrats.
On November 9, 2022, George Santos was elected to Congress, flipping New York's third district and helping the GOP clinch a slim majority in the House. He made history as the first openly gay Republican elected to Congress as a non-incumbent. But just over a month after his win, an expose by the New York Times unraveled a string of lies he told about his background, prompting even more discrepancies to be spotted.
We were bamboozled, absolutely lied to. And we do not want this representation in New York District 3.
I can't believe that he lied about everything. How could he have lied about everything? All right, let's see.
I put myself through college and got an MBA from NYU, and I have zero debt. Nothing in life is free. And the harder you work for something, the more rewarding it is.
Today, I stand very proud with the bachelor's and master's degree, all New York educated, Baruch College and NYU for my MBA.
Okay, so what he's saying is he was educated there. Maybe he just thought that people wouldn't look into the degree.
Santos's website once claimed he got a bachelor's degree in economics and finance from Baruch College. His biography on the National Republican Congressional Committee's website also previously mentioned him studying at New York University. Both Baruch and NYU, however, told the Times they could not find any records of him attending. Santos has since...
Okay, that's not good. Because now they're saying that he never even went there in the first place.
Admitted to the lies to the New York Post.
I didn't graduate from any institution of higher learning. I'm embarrassed and sorry for having embellished my resume. Ooh. Speaking of this, later we might watch something about, it's a certain YouTuber. He basically bullied a government official, and after doing so, got himself firebombed. So I'm not bullying Santos here. I want to make sure everybody knows that I'm not bullying him. This is a video somebody else came up with. It's Brut America, and it just goes over his lies.
Santos'
I didn't
campaign
do
site,
it.
which has since been updated, initially stated that he began working at Citigroup as an associate and quickly advanced to become an associate asset manager in the real asset division of the firm.
Nice.
His bio also
This is
indicated he
wonderful.
briefly
Great.
worked for
Okay.
Goldman Sachs. Spokespeople for Citigroup
Awesome
and
job.
Goldman Sachs,
Great
however,
job.
told the New York Times they could not confirm his past employment. In subsequent interviews, Santos clarified that he
What? He lied about where he worked? Shocked Pikachu.
instead had worked for a company that did business with the firms.
I used a poor use of words, but I did work in the industry for a number of years.
So what? He was like an outside contractor and possibly worked for, or he worked for a contractor that worked for Goldman Sachs. This is all right. Okay. Hey, listen, you talk yourself up, man. Talk yourself up. Let's see. Okay. That's a hard one to walk back from. 9/11. Wait, hold on. 9/11 claimed my mother's life, so I'm blocking, so I don't have to, so I don't ever have to read this again. That's a rough one. If that is true, I understand completely, because that is a very sympathetic thing to go through.
According to her obituary, Santos' mother actually died in 2016, more than 15 years after 9/11. Santos himself confirmed the year of her death in a tweet just months later. Santos later claimed his father was also on Ground Zero the day of the attack, and again confirmed neither of them died that day.
My parents were both down there the day of the attacks, and
Maybe it was
fortunately, none of
secondary
them
health
passed.
effects.
The current version of his website states his mother, quote, survived the tragic events on September 11th, but she passed away a few years later when she lost her battle to cancer. While it is possible his mother could have developed
totally
cancer from
possible.
toxins released during the attack, people are pointing out that 15 years is more than a few years, and that her obituary makes no mention of 9/11.
I'll give him that one. That could be arguable.
Oh, good morning.
Not
Shabbat
great.
shalom to
It's
everybody.
arguable.
Lee has served as an inspiration, as a friend, and as a leader for the Jewish folks in Congress. At one point being just 2 members. So now we're going to be 3.
That was Santos speaking at the Republican Jewish Coalition meeting in Las Vegas last November, noting that with his election, there would now be 3 Jewish members of Congress.
Jewish.
But less than 2 weeks later, he said this.
I'm Jewish. I come from a Jewish family. My mother's family is Jewish. I grew up and I was raised Roman Catholic. My father's Roman Catholic.
And just about a month later, he said this to the...
Am I even allowed to air that? Is that okay? Is that racist? Where are we? What am I doing? Oh no. Okay, all right. Okay, let's just keep going. I never claimed to be Jewish. I am Catholic. Because I learned my maternal family had a Jewish background. I said I was... I can't even say this, can I? Like I feel like I'm breaking rules. I feel like I'm making fun outside of my realm. You all can read. It's there. His maternal grandparents
I've seen
fled the
how
Holocaust.
socialism destroys people's lives because my grandparents survived the Holocaust.
We're no stranger to persecution. My grandfather fleeing Ukraine in 1920s to Belgium, then fleeing Belgium to Brazil in 1940. It's a story of survival,
so it checks out.
Of tenacity, of grit, as we like to call it.
According to genealogy records first uncovered by the Jewish news site The Forward, Santos's grandparents were both born in Brazil before the Nazis came to power. CNN also interviewed
Maybe it's his other
genealogists,
grandparents.
none of whom could confirm the claim that Santos's grandparents had fled the Holocaust. Since all of these revelations were made, people in Santos's district have been calling on him to resign.
We need to stand together.
That's bad.
Because we do not want to be represented by a clown in Albany.
Facing outrage, Santos himself admitted to, quote, embellishing.
Did I embellish my resume? Yes, I did. And I'm sorry. The reality is I'm human.
More aspects of Santos's life have since come into question. Claims about his income, his philanthropic credentials, his property ownerships, his mother's career, and even a claim that he lost employees to the Pulse massacre.
At the Pulse nightclub in Orlando in 2016, which I have.
All right, so there's the fun stuff. The fun stuff is this guy's a liar. He's still a liar. He continues to lie. to this day. One of them may eventually end up putting him in prison, especially the ones that have to do with the money. Again, keep an eye on the money. That's where all the good stuff is going on. Specifically, he gave himself a huge donation. Nobody can trace back that donation though. Nobody knows where that money's coming from. All right, so moving on to the good stuff. Let's see. Ooh, South Park. Oh yeah, I've heard what happened with South Park. Hold on. So we are gonna get right into it with, I guess, while we're talking about lying, we might as well look at Fox News. So yeah, let's start there. So Fox News is getting sued by Dominion, Dominion being the company that makes the voting machines, for essentially discrediting their product. You have to remember that voting machines really only work on good faith. So as long as people believe that they are working properly, then they can continue to be used. Once doubt starts to creep in, everything kind of goes away. There's been a whole bunch of lawsuits come out. There was that crazy lady that kept saying that some time traveler gave her the information, and that's how she knew that the results were messed up. There were things being thrown around about Chavez from Venezuela having been involved with the voting machines. Like, this story has gone literally batshit crazy off the rails all over the place. But we're gonna take a look. These are the biggest revelations from Dominion's lawsuits, thanks to Forbes. Let's see how Forbes says it.
I'm here with my colleague, staff writer Zach Everson, also author of the Checks and Imbalances newsletter. We are talking about the revelation, Zach, from the latest Dominion voting systems lawsuit. Basically, these revelations that have come out, texts, and I can't believe people still write this stuff in text, about from Fox News about how they viewed themselves, how they viewed the election. Let's just say, any surprises here for you, long-time viewer of Fox and certainly viewer of politics in general?
Former contributor to Fox's website back when I was doing travel stuff. Yeah, I mean, what surprised me the most was that they put it in writing. You know, I thought that was a lesson we all learned with the Gawker lawsuit when Peter Thiel basically sued them out of existence. And it was the messages that they had put in their Slack channel came back to haunt.
Yeah, it basically, like, they said the quiet part out loud. Like, why would you do that? Listen, I am not here to advocate anybody commit any kind of illegal crimes or activities or anything like that. But you should know better. Don't leave evidence around. Like, that's what. Oh yeah. Anyways, let's keep going.
During the trial. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that they were that careless with putting their honest thoughts in writing in a way that it could be.
Let's unpack some of these messages, and let's start with the basic premise of the fact that they were not really convinced about these allegations, which have turned out to be false, of election fraud, and yet they were proselytizing it, through their programming. What were some of the ones that surprised you?
Or Rudy Giuliani. I mean, the fact that they were just flat out, I think they called him basically an idiot or something along those lines. That they would put this in writing and that they would say it, and then moments later, that person would be a guest on their show repeatedly. What? And it just clear cut tells you what you need to know about Fox, and that and there certainly are some excellent journalists there. It's the primetime lineup is not interested in journalism. It's interested in churning out ratings. And hey, to that, they do a good job of getting ratings. And now we're seeing part of the reason why they're willing to put people on there who'll say just about anything. Even if,
I'm just gonna speed them up a little bit.
It's not true.
Well, it's interesting. So it's both the Fox top brass, but these hosts like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham. So they themselves were mocking the Trump camp and a lot of the people around them. Yeah. But they were also mocking themselves in many ways. So talk a bit about that, because I think there's this awareness.
So that's what I'm interested in. How much shit talking was going on in the office? Like how much was it like them just passing around this like little story about like how, I can't believe that you had to say that online. Like, I can't believe you had to talk about how the Chavez might have gotten involved and all this Venezuela stuff. Like, does anybody even believe what we're saying anymore? Oh my God.
Of the Fox
I gotta see
model. and questions internally, which I personally found surprising, the bluntness of it.
Yeah, I mean, they know it works. They do it. They're experts at it.
Can we see it? I want to see if I can see it.
Last week, we learned that Fox News would rather lie to their viewers than tell them the truth and risk people turning the channel.
This is a little better.
That truth was that the truth was that the 2020 election, according to Trump's own administration, was one of the most secure elections in American history, and that Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden by more than 7 million votes. Yesterday, thanks to the newly elected Democratic Attorney General of Arizona, Chris Mays, we learned that her predecessor, Mark Brnovich, knew months ago that there was virtually zero fraud. But he withheld that evidence from the public. Nearly a year after the election, Brnovich launched an investigation that lasted 10,000 hours with more than 400 claims investigated. Separate investigations tasked with looking into those claims produced a report in March of last year and stated in black and white that virtually all claims of error and malfeasance were unfounded.
All right, so again, they're going over the big lie thing. Obviously, there was no stealing of the election. Nothing like that happened. Okay, all right, yeah. Let's see where this goes.
A month later, Brnovich issued an interim report that ignored those findings and claimed serious vulnerabilities. He left out edits from his own investigators, refuting his assertions.
So what? He just decided, like, listen, I already got all the information right here. All this information tells me not to trust this information. Get this thing out of my face. He's like, I know it's a lie. You know why it's a lie? Because I believe it's a lie. Forget the evidence. Evidence means nothing.
His decision to lie to the public was likely motivated by the fact that he was running in a MAGA-filled primary for Arizona's Senate seat. His decision helped make Arizona ground zero of election denialism to this day. This is just a taste of what Republican voters in Arizona told Frank Luntz during a focus group just last week.
Why are we using the same system that they used in Venezuela?
If any of these systems are Democrat-owned, how can we trust the checks and balances of these votes? It doesn't matter where the vote comes from, whether it's a Dominion voting machine or a mail-in ballot. How can we trust that if George Soros owns over 40% of these machines?
We just don't trust. And because of that trust, we don't believe the truth that's being told to us.
Now remember, this has all just been repeated over and over and over again by Fox News. And now we're getting information that they not only knew that it was all bullshit, but on top of that, they were basically just passing that around like themselves, just like laughing at it behind our backs. Like, come on, it doesn't get funnier than this.
Nothing they just said is true, but this is the more dangerous, by the way, consequence of lying to people. Take a look.
God, I knew I was gonna come back to this. Oh, all right, okay, all right, I hear you. Oh, oh, oh!
You see, lies don't exist in a vacuum. They feel suspicious.
It's so hard to watch. Oh, I hadn't seen that part.
The most serious threat to American democracy in modern history. Very few Republican politicians or Fox pundits are held accountable for those lies. Those who assaulted the Capitol are being held accountable. Roughly 1,000 of them who were convinced to believe the big lie have been prosecuted, including Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the right-wing militia group, the Proud Boys. Tarrio is charged with having directed, mobilized, and led a crowd of 200 supporters onto the Capitol grounds. On Wednesday, Jeremy Bertino, the only member of that group to plead guilty to seditious conspiracy, testified that the members of the Proud Boys believed that they had to take the reins and lead an all-out revolution to keep Trump in office. In discussing how they would accomplish that, Bertino explained that they needed to get Pelosi because she was the talking head of the opposition and they needed to remove her from power.
And see, like, this is the kind of dangerous, like, that's terrorism is what he, like, this is not, that's terrorism. That's literally, that's like, back in the good old days, we would call that treason. right? Like that's a death penalty kind of crime. Like that's treason. Am I going crazy? Is it like we're dressing this up so much, but like that's what this is called treason. You don't go on a like what is this? You're invading the government space to take out. Wow, this is like. Hold on. You know what this reminds me of? I know exactly what this reminds me of. Hold on. There we go. This is what it reminds me of.
Die? You know, it was really unclear.
Because I'll make sure your destiny ends right then and there, permanently. So did you know, finish the job? I am about to celebrate becoming an only child!
Or I can do something
This is what I'm talking about.
unspeakably
This is what it
horrible
feels
to
like.
you and your friends.
I'm afraid I'm not taking prisoners today.
I went down. I didn't just get hurt, did I? It was worse than that. I was gone.
Yeah.
Bam! He delivers the final blow.
Bring you down.
Fell to his own doom. End him. Take the Fire Lord's life. Do it. End someone's
Come on.
life.
Wipe us out. Taking him down.
Take him out!
You took my mother from me.
Take the Fire Lord's life.
Just do it now.
Taking his life.
Do the
So this is what I'm saying. That's what I'm hearing here. Take the talking head of the opposition, and they needed to remove her from power. Come on. What's up? Like this is just ridiculous. Hey General, what's up?
Bertino added, quote, "We were always talking about being the tip of the spear, and that was just another example of us leading the way and leading by example." I'm joined
By taking out the head of the opposition. By taking the Fire Lord's life. Sorry, what?
now by Stuart Stevens, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project and chief strategist for Mitt Romney's 2012 campaign. And Stuart, I mean, we've been down this road before, but the people in the Republican base were receiving the same lie from so many different sources. It was their elected officials, like this official in Arizona, who's their top law enforcement guy. He's supposed to be telling them the truth, but he was lying to them to help himself win a primary, which he lost. And now let's look at what they were hearing, likely from their favorite news channel, Fox News.
So what we learned is that the investigator had evidence that showed him that the elections were 100% verifiably safe and decided to say the opposite of that. And then the news networks got that information, knew that it was 100% fake, and decided to run with it anyways.
As we await today's electoral college decision, an intel source telling me that President Trump did in fact win the election.
Interesting stories about dead people voting. Wow, amazing. What free and fair elections we all have confidence in.
I saw that interview
My
with
God,
Sidney
they're
Powell
literally
Malia,
laughing about it.
On Sunday. She sounded convincing.
We need to find out
Is no one
exactly
safe?
what happened in this election.
And I'm not giving any excuses to the people who stormed the Capitol, but every source of information available to them was telling the same lie. It's not shocking at all that they believed that they needed to do something, I guess, to keep Trump in office forever.
You know, I don't think we talk enough about the blame that is within what passes for the establishment of the Republican Party. Every United States senator who's Republican knew within 48 hours, without a doubt, that Donald Trump had lost that election. All they had to do was get their comm shop to put out a statement congratulating the president-elect of the country that they live in. They're serving in the United States Senate or in Congress. I mean, on the level of a sacrifice for democracy compared to, say, the greatest generation, which is what they inherited, it's a pretty low bar. But they went along.
Wow, this guy's really calling him out. He's just sitting there like, listen, all they had to do was say congratulations. I know that it wasn't our guy, but like, you can't win them all. That's it. That's all they had to say. And he's just sitting there like, they messed that up. It was such a simple thing, and they messed that up somehow.
And I really think that was a check.
It's hilarious.
I mean, in our system, parties should be a circuit breaker. to stop craziness. And the greatest failure of the Republican Party in this whole Trump era has been not to be that circuit breaker. And the reason they're not doing it is because they want power. And they care more about power than they care about the country. And that continues.
I think about.
All right, this is, yeah, he's right. He's right. This is more opinion than I want, though. I want to know what it was that was said. I want to know the lies. I want to know what they Fox Dominion lies. Can we get the actual lies?
A new court filing shows top executives at Fox News and leading network personalities privately dismissed
PBS is my go-to. I love PBS.
False claims of voter fraud in the days that followed the 2020 presidential election, even as they pushed those same lies on television.
Tonight, every American should be angry. You should be outraged. You should be worried. You should be concerned at what has happened in the election.
The Dominion software system has been tagged as one allegedly capable of flipping votes.
How, for example, did C9...
Right? Like, look at that. They're just sitting there going like, yep, Dominion allegedly flips votes. And like, they're using this clever little language trick so that you don't really like have any grounds to stand on. You can't just like say that it's definitely this or definitely that or, whatever. Like they said, allegedly, possibly, I need answers, there's suspicions. So that, they can be like in a legal gray area, but they've been pushing this line. What is it now? Like 2 years? And they lightened up a little bit around January 6th, but then they came right back at it afterwards.
Hermit Joe Biden get 15 million more votes than his former boss, rock star crowd surfer Barack Obama.
The court filings reveal that behind the scenes, many of the network's top stars and executives derided Trump's election lies as, quote, mind-blowingly nuts and, quote, totally off the rails, even as they criticized...
Is this a real quote? Is it really mind-blowingly nuts and off the rails? I love this. I love the thought of, like, Trump loving these guys. And look, back then, during this time, he didn't actually love them, all right? Back then, he was starting to push Newsmax, One American News. He was basically saying, like, Fox is getting a little too based for me. I can't handle those guys. Go to Newsmax and One American News. Known liars. Like, some of the worst news networks in America. But Fox was like, listen, like, if we can just get away with, like, a little tiny whatever, like, we can get some of those views back. So they started pushing this big lie thing. And they were like, yeah, as long as we do that, Trump will keep sending people our way instead of those weird guys over at OAN. And now here we are.
Colleagues for pointing that out on TV. The filing is part of an ongoing defamation lawsuit filed against the network by Dominion Voting Systems. Joining us now is David Folkenflik, who covers media for NPR. David, thanks for joining us.
It's so fun watching this sped up.
How we learned about these text messages, how they're part of this nearly $2 billion defamation lawsuit filed against Fox.
Right. It's a blockbuster case that's been filed by Dominion Voting Services Systems, an election tech company that is at the core of a lot of these fraudulent claims of fraud that were ventilated on Fox News in the immediate aftermath of the November 2020 elections. What we have here is this voluminous filing from Dominion that appeared last night. And what they're doing is making a motion trying to convince the judge that even before the trial portion of the case, he should just decide the case in their favor. I don't think there's any real expectation that could happen. But what they have done is compile an almost encyclopedic record of what was happening in real time, drawing upon text messages and emails and other communications, as well as sworn depositions.
Right. So what they're going to do is they're going to make a timeline. And this is going to be fun for them, I promise you. But they're going to make a timeline, and it's basically going to start here and just go all the way to the end and basically show, like, this is when the elections happened. This is when they knew that it was a lie. This is when they started lying. And it's going to just show it over and over again. This is when they knew. This is when they lied. This is when they knew. This is when they lied. Because at this point, they don't need to prove that they lied. They know that. What they need to prove is that there was some kind of malicious intent behind it. And apparently it even says that too. I was listening to someone that was talking about this. They said that they're a law professor and they literally would not ask this question in a test. They're like, you would never get such an easy layup in terms of a law case. Like, they would never ever give you all the evidence with motive and everything basically in like a little gift wrap bow. Like this is ridiculous. But here we
Decisions
are.
in which Fox stars and executives and off-air journalists have been forced to acknowledge what they really thought about things under oath, under questioning from Dominion's lawyers. And it is a brutal, brutal portrait that we have seen about the cynicism, the sense of crisis, and the fear and the anger that was generated inside of Fox in reaction to their audiences recoiling from the network's own call of Arizona for Joe Biden on election night, the first of any major network to do so.
What becomes clear from reading through this filing is that Fox knowingly peddled election.
That is true. They called Arizona for Biden way before everybody else. That was wild. They did that, like, I think a few hours into the election, and I remember everybody just freaked out. That was insane.
For
I freaked out.
A text
in
particular from Tucker Carlson, and he is suggesting here that a Fox News White House correspondent should be fired for fact-checking a Trump claim about the election. He says, please get her fired. I'm actually shocked. It needs to be stopped immediately, like tonight. It's measurably hurting the company. The stock price is down, not a joke.
Look at that. Look at that. Tucker I mean, am I surprised? Am I surprised that the white nationalist is getting called out for, you know, basically trying to get a woman fired for doing this? Like, this is insane. Like, you know, like this woman was basically trying to do her job. Again, not that well. She works for Fox News, which is now a known lying organization. But here she is essentially trying to do her job and just getting the worst of it. Like, come on.
Like tonight. Down.
Feverishly anxious about.
Basically, like, he was like, she's actually fact checking us. Like, why would you fact check us? This is Fox News. Like, does she not understand what we do here?
About this issue, and it raised fears inside, it raised vitriol inside, anger inside. You see that in the private message between Tucker Carlson and I believe Sean Hannity. You saw the CEO, the chief executive of Fox News, Suzanne Scott, lashing out at Bill Salmon, their Washington managing editor, senior executive over political news for that network. Why? Because he took part in Fox News's call of Arizona for Joe Biden, which was exactly what its audiences didn't want to hear. And, you know, people talked internally about this breaking credibility and
like, why would you give them bad news? It's almost like you feel some need to be correct. It's almost like you need some kind of validation, like you need to inform them of some kind of current events. It's almost like you're some kind of, oh God, they should really make a word for that. What do they call that? News networks. Like, come on, just
between Fox News
be news.
and
Just do what news does. It's not that hard.
25 years. You don't hear them talking about how credibility and trust can be broken by not sharing the truth with your audience, by not sticking to the facts. And yet, Fox News time and again brought on people, including then President Trump, but also his surrogates and champions, people like Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, and others, to make claims that they were.
Sidney Powell is a whole nother can of worms, by the way. She is absolutely off the rocker.
Mocking and assailing, denigrating, and trashing behind the air to one another because they knew it was false, but they were bringing them on. Why? To try to rebuild that trust in a hurry as millions of viewers fled Fox, often for a much smaller conservative rival called Newsmax.
David, you mentioned Sidney
Newsmax.
Powell,
That's what I was talking about.
Conspiracy theorist lawyer. As Sean Hannity, even as he was giving her airtime, he later said in a deposition, quote, "The whole narrative that Sidney Powell was pushing, I did not believe."
I did not believe it for 1 second. Look at that. Like, how much harder can it be to prove this? Like, all I needed was for them to hide this a little bit. Delete your texts, get rid of all this. They would have found it anyways. I'm gonna be honest. I don't see these guys having the level of tech security you would need to be able to cover up something like this. But oh my God, this is just hilarious.
Leave it for 1 second. How has Fox News responded to all of this?
He's like, I brought this lady on for the news and then, you know, heard her speak her inane fantasy and just went like, yeah, good job. Like, well done saying fantasy words. Thank you for the fairy tale. Good night story. Bedtime story. That's what it was. It was a bedtime story. It was a very nice bedtime story.
And what, if anything, does it do to their brand?
Fox will say that they are reporting, or they were reporting, newsworthy allegations from inherently newsworthy people about inherently newsworthy events. That is, national elections and allegations by the sitting president. Could there be a more newsworthy person? They would say that Fox News is standing in for the press writ large. There has to be robust room for there to be rhetoric and hyperbole and overstatement and, yes, at times misstatements when we're talking about important issues of national and political concern, because that's what the...
So, again, they're basically going to say that, hey, it's our bad, but... when you have a developing story, you got to give us some wiggle room. We got to be able to look at both sides. But that's not what happened here. They knew that their side was not correct. They had proof that showed that they were incorrect, and they just chose not to report it. They chose to ignore proof that like showed that they were wrong. You know, like this is one of the things that I say when we're talking about science. Scientists have a way of speaking that leads to misunderstandings. There is the theory of gravity, and somehow that makes people think that because I call it the theory of gravity, then somehow if I drop this, it's not going to just fall because it's still a theory. Like, no, it still works the way that gravity works. Like, we're not talking about that. When we say gravity is a theory, it's because there's still parts of it that are being kind of figured out. Like, we found out recently that gravity can bend time, space time. It's complicated. But the point is that it's a theory because it develops, it grows. And when it meets some kind of resistance, you don't just keep pushing, you find out what's wrong. And so when the whole theory doesn't work together the way it should, you end up rearranging it and you find the one that does. You don't ignore the evidence that doesn't come to your conclusion. So here, literally, all the evidence is showing this is a lie. So then, as a news network, your job is to say, this is a lie. That's it. Like, that's your job. You have evidence that shows this. You know this to be true. So say that. Don't just outright go in the opposite direction of all of the evidence in front of your eyes. Like, it's not that hard. That's what news means. That's what news stands for.
First Amendment envisions you have to have running room.
Why
Otherwise,
did I drop that?
You've covered Fox News for more than 20 years.
Ah.
What stood out to you the most from this revelation?
I think it is the most visceral and tangible proof of one of the strongest criticisms of Fox, that it functions in many ways as a political operation and a business enterprise and wraps itself in the word news, even with a cadre of journalists, some of whom very much believe in reporting things straight. I think you saw the lie being given to that. And I think that you saw.
Okay, so this is basically the point I'm getting at. If you are going to have the word news in your thing, you have to say news. I don't have the word news in here because this is not news. I sit here and I make jokes about the news. That's not I don't make the news. I'm not gonna go out there, talk to the people and do the reporting. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not doing it right now though. Right now we're just watching the news and laughing together. You and me. Sometimes. The point is, this is not news. So my proposal, just like in the title, which should be down here-ish, down there-ish, I don't know, wherever the title is, faux news. Some people are still going to pronounce it Fox. Fox. It's got Fox News. Everybody wins. The people that know what it means know what it means. The people that don't know what it means are happy because it sounds just the same as what it used to. Done and done. Come on, guys. You need those easy solutions. Easy solutions, guys. Easy solutions. All right, so I think we got into Fox being Fox. I mean, who are you guys surprised? I'm not surprised, right? Like this is what they do. We're just finally saying it in a court of law. Some of the big lies being they don't want to be fact checked. They know that Sidney Powell's stories. Can we actually wait before we move on? Can we pull up some of the stuff Sidney Powell said? Because some of that stuff was just straight bad. Let's see, Sidney Powell. Hear what? Was it this? On.
Sidney Powell, one of the former president's most ardent advocates, who never proved he
All
actually
right, this is a year ago.
Last year's election, gave what could be charitably called a bizarre interview to a reporter for Australian television. Randy Kay now with the result and how it turned into.
She appeared on Australian TV. What is this?
Do you ever hear yourself and think that it sounds?
She was on the ABC.
No, I know myself very well. I've been in me a long time. I know my reputation.
Attorney Sidney Powell was part of the self-proclaimed elite strike force, a team of lawyers who made false promises about rooting out election fraud. Powell and others accused voting technology companies Dominion Voting Systems and Smartmatic of using an algorithm in their machines to flip votes from then-President Trump to Joe Biden.
Yeah, huge lie, which we now know was a huge lie. Literally had no evidence of it. And on top of that, there was evidence proving the exact opposite that was just blatantly ignored.
There is no evidence that any voting system used in the last election changed, deleted, or lost votes. During a tense interview, Powell was grilled about her claims and her research, or lack thereof.
Let's get a few simple facts straight. In how many states were Smartmatic machines and software used in the 2020 election?
I don't even know the exact numbers.
A Google search
Okay, that's
will
not
tell you,
good.
let alone anything that Smartmatic themselves have said subsequently that they were involved in one single county in LA. Are you saying you're not aware of that?
Well, I'm saying I think their involvement's probably a lot bigger than that.
What actually?
So Smartmatic says that they worked in one county, and she's like, no. These people are in everywhere. It's a conspiracy. Because that's how conspiracies work.
What research or fact-checking did you do at the time to find out what Smartmatic's actual involvement in the election was?
Yeah, all right, let's see. Wait. Her response was, "Do you work for Smartmatic?" Can we go back? Hold on. Am I going crazy here? Like, no, we're at normal speed. What the?
Research or fact-checking did you do at the time?
Yeah. So she said, "What was your fact checking? What made you think that?" Can't believe this. What made you think that Smartmatic is involved in more than one county, as they have claimed?
To find out what Smartmatic's actual involvement in the election was.
Do you work for Smartmatic?
You've made an allegation against Smartmatic that they stole a presidential election. I think it's incumbent on both of us to know what Smartmatic's involvement was. It seems like a pretty foundational fact.
I mean, I'm confused right now about why you're here.
Correspondent Sarah Ferguson.
To interview you. There's no way she didn't know that this was for an interview. What is happening?
Seems patently ridiculous.
Very quickly in the interview, she decided that I was somehow an envoy of the voting machine companies that she had accused of rigging the election. So it kind of went downhill from there.
Like when Ferguson presented Powell with the facts about Smartmatic's role.
Oh my God.
Do you accept the fact now that the company that you accused of stealing a national election only operated in one county in LA in California? One county, one state.
No, I'm not prepared to accept that fact. I think Smartmatic's involvement was far more significant than that.
And when Powell was backed into a
Okay, so where was the evidence of that?
Said that Smartmatic owns Dominion. How do you justify such a basic factual error?
I'm going to stop this interview. It's wholly inappropriate in the litigation that we're in.
But we're not even in the area of great dispute. These are the simple facts.
Yeah, she's like, listen, this is like what it says on paper. This is like, we can prove this. We can tie this all. Like, what do you mean?
After some coaxing, Powell agreed to continue.
I'm highly skeptical of how long this is going to last.
Once again, pushing the big lie.
Why did she come back?
Claiming she has evidence.
All right, what's the evidence?
Who had the responsibility to check the nature of this election and to verify its results say there was no fraud.
That's the propaganda they're putting out. I disagree with that completely.
The amount of projection on this woman is insane. Like, can you imagine? Like, just the amount. Like, do you think she really believes this? Do you think that, like, maybe there's something... Is there something wrong with her? Oh, Sydney, get help. Oh, boy. Now I feel bad.
Produce additional evidence that shows up.
This channel does not promote making fun of people with mental disabilities. I just want to put that out there. So I'm going to stop making fun of this woman immediately. I didn't realize, and I apologize. This is not my intention. I did not realize that she was so brave. So brave.
Otherwise, are you saying that thousands of Americans participated in a fraud.
I am saying that thousands of Americans had some role in it, knowingly or unknowingly. It was essentially a bloodless coup where they took over the presidency of the United States without a single shot being fired.
Smartmatic and Dominion Voting have
What about the
filed
actual attempted coup?
multi-billion-dollar defamation lawsuits against Powell and others. Those lawsuits are moving forward in court despite efforts to have them dismissed. This interview was Sidney Powell's chance to save face.
What do you have in your case? You have a bunch of dodgy affidavits that don't add up. You have a group of people with dubious credentials.
That's your
and no
characterization.
Evidence.
That's all your characterization.
So far, you've provided no evidence.
You might as well
whatever.
be working for Dominion and Smartmatic.
I'm just waiting for you to provide the evidence.
He's like, I just need to see the evidence.
Randy Kay joins me now. They've been saying that, oh, you'll see it in court. I mean,
So, as we know now, she actually came out and admitted that it was a lie. Hold on, this is just a quick...
After months of pushing Donald Trump's big lie, the election was rigged against him, weaving bizarre conspiracy theories appeared to intimate that long-dead Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez had manipulated voting machines to change votes in the U.S.
Lies,
and ingratiating herself with Trump to the point where he reportedly considered naming her to be a special counsel overseeing an investigation of voter fraud. Lawyer Sidney Powell has given up the game. In a court filing defending Powell from a billion-dollar defamation lawsuit from Dominion Voting Systems, her lawyer said the claims she made on national TV for months were not at all true and too ridiculous to be defamatory. Quote,
this is what's going to piss me off about these trials. They are going to look at you in the eye and say, listen, I know it says news on the channel, okay? But the things that I'm saying, no reasonable person would take as fact, okay? Because that's the thing. If you're a reasonable person, you understand that what I'm saying is too ridiculous to be true. And that's how they keep getting out of this shit. And by the way, this isn't even a quote from me just making that up. This is, hold on. This is Tucker Carlson himself saying that. Tucker Carlson, too ridiculous to be true. Hold on. What is this?
Tucker Carlson lies for a living. That is what he is paid to do by the right-wing Australian-American billionaire Rupert Murdoch. That has now...
He just keeps throwing it like Murdoch. Although Murdoch does own everything, so yeah.
Now been proven beyond a reasonable doubt by the Dominion Voting Systems Company in their defamation lawsuit against the Fox Corporation.
Hold on. Let's see.
And the other Fox hosts in their own writing to each other that Dominion has obtained through the subpoena power of the law.
Hold on. I want to find this whole thing. Tucker Carlson, reasonable person. Let's see if it pops up. All right, fine. Let me put it this way. Tucker Carlson was sued at a certain point. I can't find it right now, but he was sued at a certain point, and in a court of law, he said that his news is in fact commentary and or satire, and the things that he is saying are too ridiculous for a reasonable person to take seriously. And that's why he's able to get away with everything that he's been doing. Everything. Like this.
Tucker Carlson's standard method, like Donald Trump, is to attack anyone who criticizes him, but he might not attack us for our coverage tonight because Tucker Carlson and Fox don't want their audience to know that this story exists. And that audience won't know as long as they keep watching Fox. In the weeks after the 2020
don't just watch Fox. Diversify.
A guest star emerged, the Trump election lawyer Sidney Powell, who was never invited on this.
Wow, they're gonna just keep going with Sidney Powell, huh? Yeah, no, it's not great. Anyways, recently, the big news is Fox News actually just got a hold of the January 6 tapes from Kevin McCarthy.
Right now is about how Republicans are using their power in the House. We all saw Kevin McCarthy clash with those hardliners. And during those clashes, when he had to get all of his votes on the House floor, he promised all kinds of concessions, including promoting what was then his most ardent foe, Matt Gaetz, to a pivotal committee devoted to basically looking at government investigations and attacking the FBI and DOJ.
So, again, what's happening here is really, really simple. Republican leader Kevin McCarthy wants to basically just pass along some stuff to his propaganda machine and see if they can cut it up in a way that's going to look nice. And pretty soon you are going to get to see Fox News is going to come out with January 6 tapes that are a nice little clean-cut edited version where it shows that, oh, it turns out that they were just poor, helpless strikers and that they were, marching for a cause and not breaking into the building for, anything dangerous or anything. Like, let me put it this way. You can find some innocence in some of these. Okay. There was a certain person, he was a postman from Maryland. He basically went up to be at the Capitol that day, ended up getting caught up in the commotion, and at some point pepper sprayed in the face. All right. After being pepper sprayed in the face, he found his way inside one of the buildings to the bathrooms and quickly started trying to get it out of his eyes, and then found himself inside of the Capitol building, and then basically said, I need to get out of here. Because he realized that this was not a good place to be in. This was not a good situation to be in. I know there's going to be exceptions, right? And we're going to look for exceptions, and they're going to find some exceptions. It doesn't change the fact of what happened that day. It doesn't change the fact that we saw one of them plead guilty to basically wanting to murder the head of House, Nancy Pelosi. I didn't say that. He didn't say that. But again, take the fired Lord's life, right? Like, we're just going to be batting words around, but we all know what he meant. He was like, we needed to remove her from power. She was the head of the opposition, the talking head of the whatever. Like, he wanted, like, we know what he wanted. They brought a guillotine. I know. They brought like a hanging platform to this thing. I mean, like, we all know what was going on.
And that itself is a shift in Washington's power dynamics. This is important for the story I'm about to tell you right now. For decades, members in both parties lobbied to get on committees like Armed Services and Appropriations, controlling money, or some sought prestigious assignments like Foreign Affairs. Now, these hardline Republicans are angling to be involved in investigating the investigators. That's the committee they want on. It's partly about politics, because there is a political fixation on the deep state or on Hunter Biden's laptop, and that's a daily thing for some of these folks, and they just do that year after year after year.
Oh, boy.
That's the politics. Well, then there's the media, which relates to the politics. But this is about media attention and the loop between Fox News and the GOP that pushes these stories and pushes the Republicans who lead the charge and makes stars out of some previously
again,
members of
it's
Congress.
A circle, right?
That we have all seen. I bet even if you don't watch Fox all the time, you're familiar
the senators, the representatives.
And let me be very clear, because I want to break this down. Sometimes the cycle starts at Fox, and they book and promote.
He's going to get into it.
Other times it emanates from congressional Republicans, which brings us to how Speaker McCarthy is using his power to give surveillance footage from January 6th, which is a big deal, exclusively to Tucker Carlson, and facing backlash over that. Meanwhile, over on air, Carlson is saying that even though they haven't reviewed all the footage yet, he thinks it contradicts the story about the insurrection.
We think already that in some ways it does contradict that story.
Does contradict that story. He's talking about the footage they got that they haven't seen yet. And that is a tell.
So again, basically, he's barely looked at it, and he's already saying, it's not the story that the Democrats told you. You know why it's not the story the Democrats told you? Because he's going to get a bomb-ass editor who's going to cut that up. He's going to make it look nice. There's going to be some nice transitions built in. It's going to tell a nice little narrative, and it's going to be basically like the narrative I told you. All right? It doesn't change what happened, who was there, what their intent was. Like, they confessed to it in a court of law. The evidence was there, and they confessed. Like, it's not... Oh my God, am I going crazy? Is this
Shows this is not about following the evidence, watching those tapes, sifting through them, seeing what they
it
might
for
show
me?
you. It is about pushing a narrative that minimizes the insurrection and hypes some phantom and future evidence, regardless of whether they actually get it. It's not working off that evidence. Now, if that approach sounds familiar, a kind of a backwards investigation, that's how Bill Barr ran the hyped but failed review of the Mueller probe. There were leaks. Barr gave interviews. He predicted future information, even bombshell. They never came. In fact, Barr's prosecutor lost the cases that did come out of it, and none of them were big to begin with. They never discovered or proved some deep state conspiracy that they promised. And they made some pretty controversial efforts to find any kind of dirt they could to discredit the original probe of Trump.
Oh, no.
So that is the model. That's now being applied to this insurrection, which has been convicted as an actual sedition. But for Carlson, the sedition...
I love how he put that in there. Convicted. That's the key word there. It has been convicted as a sedition. Not accused, not possibly being investigated, convicted. We got them. They're on trial. They're confessing. Like, it's done.
He says was, quote, not violent, not an insurrection. He thinks the people who did violently storm the Capitol on behalf of Trump, to him, they don't look like terrorists, whatever that means.
Of all the things that January 6th was, it was definitely not a violent terrorist attack. It wasn't an insurrection. An outbreak.
Again, there's not much things that would look like terrorists to a white supremacist like this, other than, I didn't say it, but you all know what.
Of mob violence, a forgettably minor outbreak by recent standards. You see people walking around and taking pictures. They don't look like terrorists, they look like tourists.
They don't look like terrorists to him, because I guess he has an idea of what a terrorist looks like.
I love how they showed the clip of them walking in there and not the clip of them busting down the windows to get inside.
But they're convicted.
We saw that. We watched that on this channel together, like on January 6th.
Rather than, say, a foreign government. Now, that person you just heard, Mr. Carlson, is who Speaker McCarthy is elevating on an exclusive basis to review the attack footage. An attack on McCarthy's own workplace and his own colleagues. And we know McCarthy is faking all this right now. And I don't say that lightly. I won't say that if I can't prove it to you. I won't just say it if I suspect that he's not telling the truth. That's not good enough. We know on this particular story.
Oh no!
Moment, during that attack, when no one knew how bad it would get.
Oh no! He's gonna bring his own words against him.
Members of Congress or assassinate Mike Pence, as they publicly clamored for. In that moment, McCarthy condemned the violence, publicly calling on those Republican attackers to stop.
Oh God!
I completely condemn the violence in the Capitol. What we're currently watching unfold is un-American. I'm disappointed. I'm sad. This is not what our country should look like. This is not who we are. This is not the First Amendment. This has to stop, and this has to stop now.
That was what he
That's
said. That
him. Those are his words.
That kind of statement is actually deemed more credible, an excited utterance, because in panic and fear, the courts have found that's when the truth might seep out, even from someone like McCarthy.
So again, those words are worth more than anything he's said since, because he has changed his tone on that. He's been like, oh, they were just protesting, and I think we all overreacted a little bit. No.
He's contradicting all of this right now. He's elevating Carlson, the insurrection minimizer, who is one of several hosts under heat right now, by the way, for the alleged defamation in the related lies that fed the insurrection. For McCarthy, this is clearly about politics, not truth, let alone the safety of his colleagues in the Capitol, if he's considered that at all. McCarthy is literally already fundraising off this gambit, giving the stuff to Tucker.
Oh my God,
I
can't believe how fast that was.
To Tucker Carlson. Now, you might stop and say, okay, Ari, but aren't top Republicans always tight with Fox News hosts? Why would the Republican speaker, who's the top Republican in government right now, need to further that alliance?
Fair, yeah.
Well, again, the answer's in the evidence. You can't just assume that all Fox hosts and Republican politicians are tight, even if they might publicly admit they vote the same way. And in a twist, Carlson has actually been blasting McCarthy as a Republican in name only, telling viewers McCarthy is a puppet of the Democratic Party.
McCarthy's a rhino? Oh, boy, I did not see that one coming. That's out of left field. All right. Okay, tell me more. Tell me more, Carlson. What? God, they're like cannibalizing each other. I love this.
You can see it written out on screen. He also calls him a Democrat or an MSNBC analyst or a DC lobbyist with no real core.
Congressman Kevin McCarthy, a man who in private turns out sounds like an MSNBC contributor. We will have a Republican Congress led by a puppet of the Democratic Party. He's in fact ideologically agnostic. He's flexible. His real constituency is the lobbying community in Washington.
Carlson views McCarthy as a flexible stand-in, a political puppet who responds to power and will say what his puppet master demands. One day it could be the donors, another it could be Matt Gaetz, another it could be a Fox host. And
to be fair, that is basically what McCarthy is. Anyways, look, now that we know what Fox News is like, you know what they're going to do. They're going to twist the story. That's what they do. That's what they love to do. We know it. You know it. I know it. We all know it. Like, that's what it is. Now, let's see. We are going to get into a whole bunch of stuff. But real quick, talking about the news for today. Just going to take a quick little side detour for this one. This was not it. That was not it either. This is it. You know what? We'll save the news for later. That's like the news of the day. So we'll save that for last. Instead, let's see. What did I say? We talked about faux news. There's two more. It's the R&R disaster in Ohio and Ukraine and Russia and Europe. So, for those of you who don't know, we are 1 year out from the start of the war in Ukraine. It has officially been a year. I don't know if it's today, but it is pretty close to today. Hold on.
New this morning, we have some reporting.
Shunk. All right. So
Ukraine for a surprise visit.
we got let's see. No, you know what? Hold on. We'll wait on the Ukraine. I'm sorry. I know. I hyped it up. We'll wait on Ukraine. Let's talk about the railroad real quick. Right? That way I can just do the Ukraine thing and then we can end this up. So, talk about the railroads. Here we go. Let's see. What are the initial findings?
To a train coming off the tracks in East Palestine. For the first time, we are learning what may have led to a train coming off the tracks in East Palestine, Ohio. The National Transportation Safety Board releasing its initial findings, and the report says the train's axle was heating up as the train got closer to the crash site. The train didn't.
Yeah, it was burning for 20 miles. What?
Reach the threshold for triggering the alarm until right before the derailment.
Upon passing the third detector with a temperature of 253 degrees above ambient, a critical audible alarm message.
253 degrees above ambient? So the surrounding was 253 degrees less hot than these tires. Like, come on.
Sounded, instructing the crew to slow and stop the train to inspect the hot axle.
Okay, this sounds to me like there's a serious problem going on with the alarms, because how do you get to be 250 degrees without some kind of alarm going off? That's insane.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg visited the site of the derailment yesterday, and the Transportation Secretary demanding more accountability from Norfolk Southern CEO. Recovery efforts continue as the NTSB now prepares for a hearing to learn more about the incident.
Okay.
We've talked to community members who are suffering health effects, have pets who've died, have damage to businesses and homes.
That's terrible.
But I can tell you this much, this was 100% preventable.
That is such a hard thing to admit. But yeah, it's true. This was preventable. This is all just lack of regulations, lack of safety measures.
We call things accidents. There is no accident. Every single event that we investigate is preventable.
Yeah.
So our hearts are with you. Know that the NTSB has one goal, and that is safety and ensuring that this never happens again. We've talked to community members who are...
Yeah, that was really well put.
We've talked to...
Really well put. Because honestly, it's a disaster. We've kind of got into it a little bit, but It's a timing thing. Ooh, somebody got surveillance video showing the. Oh my God! What? What is this? I'm kind of interested in that Pete Buttigieg thing. But here.
Train derailment and toxic chemical spill in Ohio. The National Transportation Safety Board confirms it will release its preliminary report tomorrow, nearly 3 weeks after the wreck. That will coincide with a visit by the
It's been 3 weeks? That's insane. That's insane that it's taken this long. Now, here's the thing about this. It happens all the time. Companies are choosing profit over your lives, essentially. In this case, quite literally, but in some cases, just, cutting corners here and there is a way to, save on costs. But really, they're just going to end up doing shit like this. And they think it's easier to do this and then pay everybody off. Like, they literally tried to pay $25,000 to 25 families. Not $25,000 each, $25,000 total for 25 families. That's $1,000 per family. If anybody has ever been to a hospital in the United States of America, you know that $1,000 is $0. Literally, you'd run out of that in one hospital visit, and then what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And literally, you're getting poisoned day by day by this water. Now, I know that they've said it's clean, and we'll take a look at that too, but...
Secretary Pete Buttigieg to the area. CNN's Miguel Marquez has more on this unfolding disaster and the urgent health concerns.
A massive effort underway to clean up creeks and water flowing in and around East Palestine, Ohio.
It is decimating our businesses.
It's dirty, difficult,
I bet.
slow-going work. For those living here, building trust that the water and air is safe, the slow-going is the cleanup itself.
It took, I think, Norfolk Southern 3 days, 4 days, for us to get a partial list. Vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, and benzene residue, and combustible liquids.
These are terrible.
It could be anything.
The makings of this disaster appears to have started somewhere between Alliance, Ohio, and the derailment in East Palestine. Surveillance video of the train in Alliance shows no signs of sparks coming from its wheels. There is a detector in Sebring, Ohio, that would indicate overheat, a so-called hot box detector. It's unclear if it detected any overheat, but in Salem, Ohio, just 13 miles further along, surveillance video clearly shows sparks and bright lights coming from under a rail car.
And it doesn't detect that? It's literally on fire.
At about the halfway point of the train, there is another hot box detector just down the track from where the surveillance video was taken, but it's not clear if it detected an overheat either. If it did, both the conductor and dispatcher would have been alerted to a heating issue. The NTSB said shortly before the derailment, a wayside defect detector alerted the crew to a mechanical issue. CNN estimates, based on the timestamps of the surveillance videos and distances between towns the train would have been traveling, an average of 49 miles per hour between Alliance and Salem, Ohio, then slowed to an average of 29 miles per hour between Salem and East Palestine. Still not clear why it slowed. The derailment occurred around 8:55 p.m. shortly after the train passed Market Street in downtown East Palestine. The EPA now ordering Norfolk Southern to pay for and clean up the entire disaster zone.
Yeah, the EPA has been saying that they can fine $70,000 a day every day that this isn't cleaned up, essentially. The EPA, it's the Environmental Protection Agency. They're the ones that keep the environment safe. Kind of. They've also got pretty much no teeth, so they can pretty much do nothing. But what they're saying is that they're going to fine the company that derailed this train $70,000 each day that they don't spend cleaning this up, or that it isn't cleaned up, apparently. If it fails to fully clean up, it can pay essentially.
They have to put together a work plan that's going to be very prescriptive in terms of all of the cleanup, how they will do it, and the radius of that.
Yeah, so essentially what they're saying is they're going to have to dig up a bunch of dirt, clean up all the water, clean up all the groundwater, which is going to be one of the most impossible parts of this. And then they're going to have to basically do regular checks on the water and the air and everything to make sure that people aren't essentially poisoning themselves every day.
They also have to explain to us how they'll pay for it.
this as former President Trump visits East Palestine, an area of Ohio where he still enjoys enormous support.
All right. So here's what I will say. Biden took a fat L on this one. All right. Like really bad. This was possibly one of the worst things that could have happened to his image. Like Democrats are also fucking this up real bad. Like I wanna use like less pro. God. Yeah, we'll get to Ukraine. We'll get to Ukraine soon. Ukraine is out of hand. But for now, it's been a year. It's been a year. We're at like the 1 year mark for the Ukraine war. I'm really in like it's intense. But anyways, talking about this, Biden took a fat L on this one. All right. He went to Ukraine. Great move internationally, but didn't even decide to stop by Ohio once. And like technically there was a Trump thing. No, there was a Fox News person that was basically saying that, you know, they did try, you know, they reached out to the governor, they reached out to the mayor, they tried to whatever, but like, come on, like you should have gone. You should have gone there. Like we should have gone there.
Shown the tough and resilient heart
Yeah.
of America.
You like yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like come on.
Now, I want to show you how difficult it is to clean up this mess. This is just one location where they are treating water that is contaminated. They aerate it. Those white buoys you see there, those are filters that pick up that toxic sludge that comes through. They are doing this throughout the area, and all organizations now saying that they will be here not for months, but for years. Wolf?
Miguel Marquez on the scene for us.
Years.
And this note, stay with CNN later tonight for a town hall on the toxic train disaster hosted by our own Jake Tapper. Ohio residents will visit to Ohio today, where he was very critical of President Biden. I want you and all of our viewers to listen to something else he said. Listen to this.
I sincerely hope that when your representatives and all of the politicians get here, including Biden, they get back from touring Ukraine, that he's got some money left over.
So, Kristen, is that message playing well? I assume it is with his base out there.
You hear that? He said, once we're done giving money to Ukraine, hopefully there's some left over for Ohio. He's playing them like fiddles, man. And like, he caused this. And so this is what I'm saying. Like, Biden lost so hard in this by just not showing up. All he had to do was go one time and just talk to these people. Like, that's all he had to do. And the Democrats are fucking this up by not hammering home the point, which is that Republican policies led to this accident, right? Like literally, Democrats are taking a fat L right now by not just standing up and putting themselves in front of every camera and saying, hey, listen, deregulation is the reason this happened. People who deregulate are the people that have caused this. Rampant deregulation is what causes accidents like this to happen. Because when companies think that they can get away with cutting corners, they will. And they don't care about labeling these materials as hazardous or not because they know that they'll have to pay extra if they're hazardous. They don't care about updating the brakes on this because, again, that'll cut into the profits. They don't care about having enough people to properly check these train cars because it will cut into the profits. And those are profits that they need to pay out to their shareholders. They have a profit of in the billions of dollars, and yet they can't afford more than $25,000 per family. Like, how is this? Is CNN right? Is CNN lean right or left? Every like main media source is like a little to the right. Like they're all slightly conservative, and you can tell. You can tell because like there's basic stuff that they should all just be supporting, and then suddenly they're like, I don't know. Let's see both sides of this issue, and you're like, there's not really a both sides thing here. You know, it's kind of just like, you know, everyone needs healthcare, and that's just what it is. Like, come on. There's an app called Ground News, which shows you in the USA and the world if that that actually sounds great. I gotta take a look at that app. Yeah, because there's certain things where you're like I said, like I think for the world, I'm probably pretty center. Like I don't think I'm much to one side or the other. For here, I'm definitely like crazy in the left. Like
Absolutely is. I mean, we'd already heard from the mayor, that man that was standing right behind Trump in that clip you just played, who spoke on Fox News. He's a Trump supporter, and he basically lashed out at Biden for going to Ukraine, for spending money in Ukraine, when he said, this again is the mayor of East Palestine, said that they still needed help on the ground there. That
in Biden's defense, he offered to come, he offered to help, and the mayor and the governor both said no, and they pushed him back on that. He could have gone anyways. He could have said that. See, that's one of the things that Trump actually was pretty good at doing. He would stand in the presidency and be like, these governors are bitches and they all know it, and da 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 da. And he would express his discontent, so we all knew it. We all knew what he was thinking because he couldn't keep his mouth shut about what he was thinking. Like, Biden, I don't know that. I'm basically just coming up with excuses for him, but at the same time, he's taking a fat L right now, and so are the Democrats. Like, it sucks. This is why I hate the fact that we have two parties, because like on the one hand, you have Republicans who are basically actively criticizing Biden for their policies, right? Like, the only thing that Biden has to be criticized about here is, again, not showing up and also forcing them back to work, basically forcing them to agree to the demands of the companies in their like safety strikes, you know? See, this is the thing. Like, I'd be cool being a Republican if Republicans weren't batshit. And like, it happens everywhere for this kind of stuff. Yes, this is East Palestine, which is in Ohio.
Biden hadn't been on the ground there. And this is really part of what Trump's advisors were hoping to accomplish with this trip, to contrast former President Trump and President Biden and really highlight Trump's America First agenda that he has routinely pushed. The other thing to point out here is that we know from advisors that conservative commentators and conservative influencers have been calling on Trump for weeks to make this trip to Ohio. They believe that this was an area that was full of Trump support.
And like, let's put it this way, Trump doesn't give a shit about these people, and you know it. He does not care about any of these people. He's going to forget their names and faces literally the second he turns around. All right? You know it. You know that's exactly what he's going to do. He's literally going to, and it's going to be just like memory wipe. Boom. Gone. Right? But this is the best move that he could make as a politician. Right? This is great for him. This is like the best amount of publicity. He's showing up. He's putting himself out there. He's trashing his opponents. Literally, this could not be more of a slam dunk for him. And what pisses me off is that the Democrats are just letting it happen. They just sit there and just take it. And all they have to do is stand up. Like, Pete Buttigieg kind of hit back a little bit. But like, for the most part, they're just taking it. Nobody's talking about this. Nobody's walking him back. Nobody's sitting there being like, deregulation is actually your policies. Deregulation is actually a like very, very, very Republican idea. That is literally one of their like tenets in their platform. Like it's one of the founding tenets basically that goes with being Republican is deregulation. And this is a disaster caused by deregulation. And they're just totally glossing over that to focus on the fact that Biden showed up to Ukraine first and still has not shown up to this.
Reporters, that he could actually make it there, he could make an impact there by visiting. And it was clear today that that is accurate, that was one of the things they tried to approve. The other thing I want to just point out here that advisors had tried to accomplish and hoped to accomplish was to make Trump look presidential in this moment. And this trip really did mimic a White House disaster trip. He visited a site, he was flanked by local officials. So those were the two political things that they were trying to achieve with this trip.
And David, I'm curious what you think.
And they did it. They achieved it perfectly. Like, come on.
Speaking, should President Biden go to East Palestine now?
Oh, listen, I'm not in the business of advising President Biden, but I'll say I'll be shocked if he doesn't show up there at some point. There's a long tradition of presidents going to high-profile disaster sites. This president is well known for his empathy and trying to give voice to those that are afflicted by something like this tragedy in Ohio.
Like, the fact that Biden got there first, or that the fact that Trump got there first is such an L. Like, it's such a fat L. Like, I'm so pissed about that.
and the comfort of a nation. That goes sort of across parties here. Listen, Joe Biden may do that, and it would be irrespective of the politics. I don't know if Donald Trump would have made this trip if it weren't in as friendly Trump territory. I mean, this was the way Trump likes it, right? A resounding welcome for him. He's extraordinarily popular there. Kristen noted that his advisors are eager to make him look presidential. It just reminds you of the unprecedented nature of the Trump candidacy.
Yeah, it takes months to plan a Euro trip, but it takes an hour to fly to Ohio. And it's not like he wasn't flying around domestically before that, right? Like, this is an easy, quick, like, hey, something happened. Let's make a trip. Let's just pop on by. Like this is such an L for him. Like, all he had to do was just show up. And like, I get it. Like, he should have gone to Ukraine. Let's go to the cloud of toxic chemicals. It was weeks after. Like, it's weeks, literal weeks. And on top of that, like, it's not like he can't wear a mask. Everybody wore masks for years. Hi, Leviticus. Welcome back. But again, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, he could have worn a mask. He could have gone. Ohio is literally an hour away from DC. Actually, like, Ohio to DC. Like, it's an hour it's an hour and a half by flight. It's like 20 minutes.
Hey guys, I'm here at Leslie.
It's terrible. All right. Fine. Ohio to DC flight. Let's see. If I look it up this way. Really? Ohio. Let's just say Cleveland. Why not? Cleveland, Ohio, Washington, D.C., economy. Let's say, yeah, cool. I just want a flight. I just want to see how long it takes. Hour and 12. Hour and 20. Hour and 20. Hour and 20. It takes like an hour and 20 minutes to just fly there. And the president can totally just fly out. He's got his own plane. He's got his own plane and his own helicopter. He could go anytime he wants. And like, let me put it this way. I don't like Trump more than Biden. All right. I will put that out there. I like Biden more than Trump, but I don't like either of them. Secret Service has to clear the place first. Yeah, but this is all stuff that they can do. This is not like out of the ordinary for him. This is not like crazy business. They got him into Ukraine. They literally got him into a war-torn country, but they couldn't manage to get him an hour across the country. Like, it's a fat L, and like an easy one to clear up too. All he has to do is show up. All he has to do is go. And like, they got Pete Buttigieg out there, you know? Like, it's not that hard. All he has to do is show up. And like, that's what's sad about this. Because like, this is not hard. Like, all he had to do was just go. All he had to do was show up. And like, he's letting Trump take control of the narrative. He's letting all the Republicans take control of the narrative. Yeah, usually it takes weeks and months, but there are emergency procedures you can do. You can literally get these things moving and just be like, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. And look, that we already got into the big lie thing, Leviticus. You're a little too late on that. But let's keep moving. We already talked about the votes. I want to see what Buttigieg has to say.
This is not a community with infinite resources. Speaking with the mayor, hearing about what he has been through, and remembering
Buttigieg, by the way, is getting pushback from basically everybody because he says that everything has to be politically correct, apparently. I am not saying that means that it has to be woke. What it really means is like, he's basically just saying like, hey, listen, airplanes shouldn't be able to charge you for a flight, like seats that they don't have on a flight. Like, it's just simple stuff like that. And I don't know. They're getting really on his case about this stuff. I don't think there's anything there, but let's just see what he has to say.
The experience of being a mayor, I am really impressed with how they've been able to support one another. And they're not here for the politics. They're here to make sure this community can move forward.
What's your assessment of the cleanup effort thus far, and also Norfolk Southern's role in it?
So you can see how hard people are working to clean up this site. And again, I met with some of the folks involved in that.
Yeah, we were watching this earlier. They're literally going to take years to clean this up because this was such a disaster.
On everything from the testing to the remediation, and they are doing good work. They need to be supported. If at any moment we see any...
Okay, wait. Just to play devil's advocate in this, I will also say that Biden probably does have a lot on his plate right now, and Trump is essentially a retired golfer. So Trump does probably have more time on his hands. But I still hold on to my point, which is that this is such a fat L for Democrats, and that Trump is basically getting a chance to spin his own narrative and say whatever he wants about this. Because we know that it's his deregulation policies that got us into this. We know that Republicans love deregulation, right? But they're able to spin this and basically say, look, when disaster struck, where were the Democrats? And they sent Buttigieg, but where was Biden? You know, like, come on.
Any evidence that Norfolk Southern is backsliding on their commitments, or that anybody is not doing this by the book and then some. We're going to be there with any authorities that we have on the matter, and this whole administration will, because this is too important to let people down. Well, they're right to be concerned. Look, some of these issues, health issues, environmental issues, they can last for years. They can last for decades. And there's really just two things I can say. First of all, we will never forget the people of East Palestine, and we will support them with everything we've got.
We will totally forget the people of East Palestine, and we will not support them with everything we have. I'm just clearing it up for you guys. He's saying it, but at some point Congress is going to start saying, why are we spending so much on Ohio? You know, I don't think they need all that clean water like they say they do. Like, it's going to get forgotten in like 2 years. And then they're going to sit there and say like, oh, you know, it takes like several years, maybe even a decade to clean up all this mess. They'd be like, best I got for you is 3 years. Like, come on.
But second, the best way to deal with an ecological disaster is to stop it from happening in the first place. And that's a big part of where my department comes in. And we take that very seriously. It's why we've laid out all those sets of things we're doing, things we want Congress to do, things we expect the railroads to do about that.
Cool. That was cool. All right. So yeah, this that CNN, I think it was, actually held a little like talk to talk. Citizens got to ask governors, got to ask mayors what's going on. This is one of the things that happened here. I want to show you guys this. I hope that they. Why is everything in TikTok form?
I think I've been pretty strong. I said we're not leaving. We're staying. We have the best experts. We're going to listen to the experts.
If you would stay in East Palestine, would you come and spend
Yes.
the night there? You would.
Until the cleanup is done, you'll stay with us? Within the 1 mile?
Yes. I've been there. I've been there 3 times.
For a few hours. Have you?
Like, look at this. I got to find the CNN video of this because, like, look at this. This is literally a TikTok version of a YouTube size version. Like, what are we doing here? Hold on. Ohio man confronts East Palestine. Yeah, let's try that. Oh, I think this is it. That also seems pretty cool, so I'll pull that up. Okay.
Jenna Giannis is also here and has a question for you.
Hi, I have a 2-part question. So the first part of my question is if you could walk us through that decision of not digging up the soil and just rebuilding the train tracks over it. And second, it's been roughly 3 weeks. What new safety?
They're just gonna build over it. They can't do that. That's
regardless
not how.
of the.
So again, talking about these kinds of chemicals, the kinds of chemicals that were spilled are PFAS. Is basically what they're called. They're essentially called forever chemicals because they don't really go anywhere. Like, they don't disappear. All right. Actually, there's a very interesting thing that we learned about in chemistry, especially talking about nature and stuff like that, where fish will have a certain percentage of chemicals in their bodies from the water, like let's say like mercury. right? Like mercury was a big concern. So let's say the fish has like 1 part per million. Well, then you get into the animals that eat the fish, right? We're talking like foxes, bears, I don't know, any other kind of creatures. Well, the ones that eat the fish don't have 1 part per million. They have more like 10 times as much what one has. And then it just keeps increasing exponentially from there. And part of the reason why it's such an exponential increase is because they're not just eating one fish, they're eating like 10, 15, 20. They're eating lots of fish. So the concentration of chemicals in their body starts getting heavier and heavier and heavier because it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't disappear. So when they say that they're just going to build over it, just kind of cover it up, like the chemicals don't just go anywhere. They just sit there and they'll seep into the groundwater. They'll seep into the local wildlife. They'll get into the roots. Like these chemicals are no joke. Like part of the problem that we have with them is that they just stick to things and then they don't go away. They don't disappear. One of the biggest disasters of our time that we haven't really addressed yet and haven't really looked at yet is microplastics. Microplastics sneak into your water, your food, everything. Like right now, I think there basically isn't anyone alive right now that doesn't have a little bit of microplastic inside of their blood. Now, part of that is just because so much of it is seeped into our water that it's just part of the water cycle now. And so when you're drinking water, you're drinking microplastics. But they are basically getting a concentrated dose of that, and they're going to be stuck like that for years.
The investigation that's going on, clearly there are some things that need to change. And if you haven't come up with them yet, when can we expect to hear from them? Because this isn't the first. This won't be the last. People need to see change in a big way. And yeah, those are my questions.
Yes, ma'am. We believe that we had an environmentally sound remediation plan for the soil under the tracks. However, as I noted, as I continue to engage with members of East Palestine in one-on-one meetings and small group meetings.
Can I interrupt you? What made you believe that that was an okay resolution? That's what I'm looking for. Like what goes into that decision?
Yes. Our independent environmental experts. So as I have engaged
when you dump 100,000 gallons of chemicals and
oil.
And oil.
You're not talking about the oil.
60,000 gallons of oil. When you dump that into the ground and you don't take that out of the ground before you put your tracks on and you run your train on it.
You need to hire some new
That's an okay
experts.
decision.
I love her. Oh, I love that reaction.
The oil is going to cause us the long-term effects. Everybody's talking about the chemicals, and while I do think that's important, it's the oil that's seeping into our ground that you chose not to dig up and just put your tracks right over top of it. She's asking you specifically, what led you to that decision?
Oh, boy.
Ma'am, we've made a lot of progress on environmental remediation. We've dug up 4,600 cubic yards of soil and collected 1.7 million gallons of water. We will continue with the environmental remediation. And in early March, we will start by tearing up the tracks and digging up the soil underneath the tracks.
For 6 weeks. Oil's going to be soaking into our soil.
So until then, we'll just have it keep going down.
Keep going in our.
She's sitting there like, it's 6 weeks until you can fix this, until you can start to fix this. Like, no, like she's look at her brain. Like her brain has this moment of being like, what did she like? How can I tell you without murdering you that you're murdering me?
For 6 weeks, oil's going to be.
Look at that face. Oh, bless her. Oh, she's trying so hard.
Soaking into our soil.
So until then, we'll just have it keep going down.
Keep going in our soils.
Janet, did you get all your questions answered?
No,
I love how they're doing this via video chat too. They're just sitting there like thinking, you know what, we cannot have these people in the same room together. And obviously one of them needs the protection because who knows what would happen if we put him in a group of like with people that he's personally wronged. Oh God, this is terrible.
I did specifically ask what changes you've already made, and I think these residents also are very valid in asking.
Everybody wants to know
why the delay. Why can't we do it tomorrow?
Yeah, Janice, thank you for that. I didn't get it.
It's
I
Jenna.
didn't get to
Just
respond to that.
It's Jenna.
Yeah, we're gonna. Oh, my apologies. We're gonna test and we're gonna calibrate all of the wayside detectors all across our system. That's something that we stood up in the immediate aftermath.
Like we can't, right?
And is that something that's visible for people to see?
Like I
Is
know
it
we're going
publicly
to.
available for us to see that that's being done?
Like part of the reason why I keep coming back to this story more than the other stories is it's important and we are going to forget, and that's the shame here is that literally we're going to talk about this maybe for another week or two and then it's just going to disappear, right? Like yeah, like we've definitely shot more people than we've days. That's I'm not even surprised by that, right? Like I'm not surprised by that. I was watching this thing, they were talking about Russian culture and they said that Russians have a kind of a like death is coming for all of us kind of thing going on in their culture, so nobody really cares that much when threatened with their, you know, untimely demise. We have a similar kind of deal going on, like disasters happen here all the time, preventable disasters, and we just kind of sit there and we're like, yeah, sounds about right. You know, like teachers could have like 16 years of experience, 6 degrees, and all this stuff, and they're working 3 jobs and selling their blood to make ends meet. And we're like, yeah, it sounds right. You know, that's totally fair. Yeah, I see that. I get it. You know, and it's just like that's the kind of deal that we have here in the United States. And it's ridiculous. Like we have zero empathy. We don't consider other humans humans. We just start putting labels up and then suddenly like, you know, you can't relate to this person because they're XYZ. Like I can't deal with this. But let's see what these people have to say.
It's an internal component to Norfolk Southern.
Don't you think people would want to see that happening? Wouldn't that show that you're trying to do something different if you're actively showing people this?
Yes. Yes, it would.
We could certainly take videos of that.
Yeah.
And post it. What we have done is we stood up a website.
It's like you didn't think that it would be good for your company to show that you're trying to fix your problems?
NSMakingItRight.com, and we're providing updates every day on the environmental remediation.
Wait, hold on. What is it? What was that? Hold on. What did he say?
And post it. What we have done is we stood up a website. What we have done, based on feedback that we've gotten from the citizens, is we stood up a website, NSMakingItRight.com, and we're
NSMakingItRight.com. All right, let's check it out. This is total propaganda, but hey, you know. NSMakingItRight.com. Making it right, East Palestine. Air quality, safe. Water quality, safe. Family Assistance Center, more than 3,000 families assisted. Yeah, 2.6. Yeah. Incident site cleanup ongoing. Yeah. When the election rolls around, Trump is going to sit there and be like, remember who was there? I was there. You guys, like, you didn't see a Democrat in sight. And that's going to piss me off more than anything because we know that this is all deregulation. This is literally like deregulation caused all of this. We know that for a fact. It's coming out more and more and more. And this is what Republicans love to do. They love to deregulate stuff. And they are going to own this by spinning it around and saying Democrats didn't even show up. And the Democrats are just sitting on their asses. Like, I need to see them talking about this.
Providing updates every day on the environmental remediation. We're providing updates every day on the financial assistance for the community.
Yep.
Mr. Shaw, one of the questions that Jenna asked that you didn't answer had to do with the fact that obviously whatever Norfolk Southern was doing almost 3 weeks ago wasn't sufficient in terms of safety. And her question was basically, you don't need to wait for the federal government or Governor DeWine to tell you to improve things. For example, if it's true, as Senator J.D. Vance notes, having 2 staffers and a trainee on a 150-car train would not seem sufficient in the view of Republican Governor Vance. So her question is, Senator Vance, her question is, what are you asking your team to do now to change it before the government makes you change it? Because you are in charge of the company, you can make those changes. And yes, if you spend $1 billion on safety, that's great. Of course, your profits are in the multi-billion dollars every year.
Okay, thank you for asking that question. Wow, look at that. An actually good question. Saying, hey, will you pay to fix the problems that you're causing? You don't have to wait for the government to tell you what you're doing is wrong. You could just fix it on your own immediately, right now.
Yeah, we're also advancing technology on our locomotives to inspect the tracks as our trains run over the tracks. We're looking for the results from the NTSB, the investigation, to find the root cause of this, which is one of the reasons that we're cooperating fully with the NTSB and the FRA. We'll learn from this. What we had in place didn't work here. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to make the investments to make Norfolk Southern safer.
I want to bring in Jim Stewart, who has a question for you, sir.
That was a nothing. That's exactly what he said. He said, I'll take a look.
A lot of this that I have to ask has been answered already. But I'm speaking on the aspect that we, the people of East Palestine, are just being treated like dummies. We're not dummies. We're smart people. Listen to these people, what they have found out about different things and everything else. I'm angry. I'm angry about this. I've lived in East Palestine for 65 years now. That's my home. My grandmother came from Germany. She lived in Palestine. My dad grew up there. My family's grown up there now. And it is disgusting that we're just lost it. I live in a house that's probably the closest of any of these, and it's a shame. And this is probably the next closest one. And our house is, it's been inspected, it's been this, it's been that. I'm afraid to put my dog out just to pee. I mean, he's only on this tall. So, I don't feel safe in this town now. You took it away from me. You took us away from this. You seem like a sincere man. I'm not calling you names. I'm not, your company stinks because they're.
He's like, it's not you. It's just everything that you're in charge of. It's like, it's not your fault that your company sucks. It's just every decision that you've made sucks. And thus, the consequences of the decisions you've taken are really shitty. Come on. All right, so like we kind of get it. These people are pissed. They're just kind of throwing questions out, really fair questions. But like, yeah, they're like, we don't have any laws that keep them from doing this. We don't have laws that keep like CEOs, companies from basically abusing their workers. I mean, easy comparison to this. We recently found out that there's a bunch of child labor going on. Kids as young as like 13 are using incredibly hazardous chemicals to clean like the big saw machines at meat plants. Like here, like child labor in the United States, by the way, United States. Like, this is not like, here, hold on.
I want to show you a headline. Federal officials say more than 100 children worked in dangerous jobs for slaughterhouse.
Are you going to show the picture?
Now, that is not a headline that was from a 100-year-old newspaper. This is from today, which maybe you guessed because, yes, it has the peacock.
More than 100 children worked in dangerous jobs for slaughterhouses. I want to see if I can find the picture, though, because the picture was pretty. Child labor, slaughterhouse, boom. Let me see if I can find the picture so you guys know what I'm talking about. Children! Literal children. And they're working here illegally, basically in like, come on, like you can't trust kids to have like the precaution with all this stuff. And these chemicals can cause like some serious permanent damage, right? These chemicals are no joke. We use these things to clean out all the, Nebraska. And I think one of them said Texas too. It's actually several states. 13 hazardous plants from Minnesota to Texas. Violations in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Kansas, Minnesota, Nebraska, Tennessee, and Texas. All right. We need regulation. We need people to not abuse this stuff. Now, I know that there are laws against this, right? Is my problem with child labor that children are not mature enough to work? No, I think that there is work that is appropriate for youths. I do not think that it is working with some of the most dangerous, most hazardous chemicals on the planet. You know, I think that a job that might be appropriate for children is actually, you know what? That's a good question. There is no job appropriate for children. But again, we have child labor laws. Like we put this out there so that children don't have to work. And on top of that, we're the best country in the world. Why are we making our kids work? And like if you say it's to make ends meet, then that's terrible. Like these kids should just be able to focus on their education and just living a school life, you know?
We believe the smell is coming from the butyl acrylate. What we do know about that chemical, as one is its toxic.
Wow, okay. This is terrible. Hmm. It look, I know it is illegal. I know child labor is illegal. That's why they got busted. But what I'm saying is companies like to cut corners. They're going to cut corners in any way they legally can, and in some ways they illegally can. All right? But the point is that if we have regulations, if we have laws, then we have a clearer definition of what is legal and what is illegal. And it means that maybe we won't get 100% of the companies to abide by it, but definitely much more, because again, it becomes the new standard, right? So like in this case, the new standard is that companies need to take, especially railroad companies, need to take more time when they're doing their safety assessments. They need to upgrade their brakes so that we're not using Civil War era brakes. You know, like it's simple stuff that like should be written into legislation. But we keep on stalling and we keep on doing all this like, you know, like we're focused on all this bullshit right now. I mean, like not to, you know, not to belittle anyone's point, but I don't need Hunter Biden's dick pics. All right? But we're going to spend the next few months talking about that, and we're not going to talk about this deregulation shit. It's just going to get blown away. The same thing with what I was saying about Trump and Biden. Biden went to Ukraine, Trump went there. Like, we're going to be talking about that for so long, and we're going to ignore the fact that these people now have a contaminated, like, town, and they're going to be stuck that way for decades, possibly. Like, you know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, we're going to be sitting here literally looking for Hunter Biden's dick for the next 3 months. Right. And we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about the fact that these people now basically have to worry if their water is killing their fish or not. Like, look at this.
Fish, but it also has what's called a real low odor threshold, which means you'll smell it for a long time before it will cause a health effect.
Great. So you get to smell it for a long time and then it causes a health effect. Why? Why?
We have been monitoring continuously along the creek. We're smelling it too, but we're not getting any detections of it.
And see, like I said, like Republicans literally run on deregulation. It's one of their big like tenets for most of their campaigns. All right. So this should be an easy. Democrats sit there and go, this is the problem with deregulation. This is what happens when deregulation, da 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 da. But they're silent right now. And they're silent right now because they don't know how to say that while also saying that their president, Biden, signed into legislation, or at least the executive order, basically forcing railroaders back to work. All right? Like they can't come up with a way to say, yeah, Biden wanted railroad companies to be running for Christmas so that he could make a strong statement while at the same time, you know, basically forcing them into unsafe conditions that cause a disaster. Trump, though, literally caused the deregulation that caused this thing, but they just can't come out and say it because I don't know why. And that's what pisses me off about Democrats. They have an easy attack here, and they're just not taking it. Why, I don't know. Yes. No, yeah, you're right. They are also getting donations from the same companies. That's probably most of the problem. But it's just it's ridiculous. Like it's insane. And like here, look, this is basically what I'm talking about here.
Nothing about these derailment numbers.
So this is Faux News, or Faux News. I'm sure they will change the name eventually. I don't know if it will be sooner or later, but It's either going to be Faux news or it's just going to be Fox without the news, because that's definitely the compromise they have to make after all the Dominion stuff. But for now, we have Faux news. Let's see what happens.
That we have thousands of derailments all the time, and how costly it is, and how they're not kept up, and maybe the regulation needs to be there. I think there needs to be there's a widespread sentiment to have a look at the whole rail industry, what the lobbyists are doing, and what the actual. I heard there were 3 people on that train of how many cars? 20 of.
Yeah, 150 cars, and there were 3 people on there. Like you can't make this stuff up.
Which had chemicals in it? Somebody at the front, somebody at the back, and does that blow you away? I mean, I know that say is
So they're talking about how, basically, let's see, I knew nothing about these derailment numbers. Yeah, there's like 1,000 a year, basically. They're not kept up. Maybe the regulation needs to be there. And then we get here where Steve Ducey actually drops this bomb.
Even when there were derailments, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao never visited the sites. But what is different about that and this poison gas. Well, people just don't trust the government tests because they go, well, it's okay to trust, you can drink the water, you can breathe the air. People don't trust the tests. And
yeah, of course people don't trust the test. I'll show you guys in a little bit what the test looks like.
By virtue of government officials showing up, breathing the air, drinking the water, then it looks better. But for them to say, look, they didn't do it at that time, it's just one of those things.
But there was nothing that equated. There's nothing that equated to this during the Trump administration. And one thing about Donald Trump,
and there were some
toxic gases that poisoned the town.
There were some fatality derailments where people lost their lives during the Trump administration. Nobody lost their life during this.
Right, but this.
Do you guys hear that? They said that during the Trump administrations, there were fatal derailments. People lost their lives. There were derailments all the time. The Secretary of State of Transportation at the time didn't show up to any of these. I'm also not going to totally say this, but she might have gotten in there because of nepotism. She was McConnell's wife. And Trump never really liked her anyways because of... I'm not going to put it out there, but, if we look at a picture of her, I think it's pretty easy to tell why Trump didn't like her. It's not that important. But
just can destroy a town. So this is the easiest thing to do to show up, and they have chosen not to show up
during the Trump administration.
So, again, what we're saying here is during the Trump administration, basically this also happened. People died, but he just never showed up. This was actually from the time, August 3rd, 2017. I'm continuing to get rid of costly and unnecessary regulations. Much work left to do, but effect will be great. Businesses and jobs will grow. Trump rolls back train-breaking rule meant to keep oil tankers from exploding near communities. Literally the problem we had in East Palestine. Okay? But, no ability to do sweeping reform? Yeah, again, look, the point here is Trump deregulated it, but Biden also didn't fix it, right? But that doesn't mean that it's like we can't, this is like Leviticus. That's literally what you're saying. You're saying Trump may have broken it, but Biden didn't fix it. Like, Biden was too busy doing all the other stuff he was doing, like passing the sweeping infrastructure bill, which was probably supposed to address this, but again, basically got stuck in debate hell for 2 years. 50 years of Biden. Look, the point here is everybody takes an L here. But if Democrats are taking the fattest L by literally just not calling this out, by literally just not sitting here and saying Trump broke it, Biden might not have fixed it, but Trump definitely broke it. Right? It's not that hard. And it's broken. It's broken as hell. Now, let's see. Trump administration to blame, blah, 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 blah. Biden, Ukraine. All right, look, we're moving on. So, speaking of Biden, Biden decided not to show up to East Palestine and instead went to Ukraine. We are currently, I think literally to the day, 1 year out from the start of the war. I'm going to double check that because I don't want to put any any kind of fake news out there, but I think we are literally 1 year out. That is what CNN is saying. That is what I think. Yeah, I think that's what most people were saying. So yeah, I think how to join. How do you join? You can just enlist. You can just call. Hey, if you want to, yeah, just call them up. Here's the number. Yeah. So 1 year to the day. 1 year at 4 a.m. Yeah. So today is literally the beginning. Today is how it started. I just wanna go back. I wanna do a quick little like recap of what happened, how we got here, where we are. Um, Russia's making scary moves. Russia's making like actually super scary moves. Um, things are about as scary as they can be. So real quick, let's do. Does anybody have a Ukraine recap? Is that like a Russian invasion 6 months summary? It takes 20 minutes. Wow, actually, you know what? That's not bad. 10 minutes. All right. So before we get into all this, let me just try to give you guys a quick summaries just so that we're all on the same page. Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet bloc, kind of at a certain point was its own independent country, wasn't its own independent country, moved in, moved out. Yeah, you can send me a short video. I'll try to take a look at it. But the point is that they were trying to basically establish themselves as a separate people. They do have a slightly separate culture, but there are lots of people that basically think that Ukrainians and Russians are essentially the same, but there is a difference in their culture. The borders have been disputed for a long time. Russia specifically has some problems with the borders as they stand, right? And yeah, like they be the 51st state. Listen, the point is Ukraine is essentially the only thing stopping Russia from taking over all of this space up to a certain set of mountains that would be acting like kind of like as a natural border against the NATO states. As NATO started expanding more and taking more countries, Russia got a little more nervous, and they said that they needed this, they needed that. Eventually, they invaded Crimea. We basically just sat there and let them take it, partially because I think Obama was president, and anything he was gonna do was gonna be like the bad move. Everybody hated him. So, like at a certain point, like there was nothing he could do to win that. So, he didn't get involved. They took Crimea. We basically gave them a no wag, kicked them out of the G8. G8 became G7. And then we kind of just let it stay quiet. Then I was looking at something that was talking about this earlier, but then we got President Trump, who, and again, this can be a consequence of being corrupt or not. I'm not just throwing that out there, but again, a lot of things happened under Trump. We basically decided that NATO didn't deserve all the funding that it got. So we started pulling back our defenses in NATO. We received some not so great gifts from Russia, including a bugged soccer ball that Putin gave him personally. We got basically, we tried to deny aid to Ukraine and basically debilitated their entire defense and our influence in Europe. Then, the second that Biden was in, maybe like a year in, a year out, is when Russia attacked Ukraine. And then we started the war, and now we're a year in of us basically shoving money into Ukraine just to see if it'll maybe stabilize when, before that we just needed to maintain that strong influence that we needed. Now it's a full out war. So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what happens. I'm also going to click on this to make sure it doesn't disappear. Cool. Yes, yes, yes. Can we skip forward a little bit?
Oh, hey, Ukraine. What? Are we seriously gonna get into this now? Get into what? I don't know. Haven't you been watching the news recently? Oh yeah, and how incredibly biased it is? Bias? I mean, coming from the state-controlled media empire with UN representatives that accuse the West and Ukraine of using genetically enhanced combat mosquitoes against Russia? I mean, not like biological warfare is a new thing. Look, we're at war right now. I shouldn't even be talking to you. Okay,
Wait, is that true? And also, what is... You guys hear that, right? What is causing that?
First of all, special operation.
Sorry guys. I hear like a... Do you guys not hear that? I hear like dramatic music. And it's not showing up for you guys. That's so funny. All right. Okay. Sorry. Hold on. I'm just trying to figure out where this... Like, it's like... I almost feel like I'm in a movie and they're like trying to show me the most dramatic thing in the world. All right. Sorry. Let's just keep going with this.
Second. Oh, so now you just want to stay quiet and just listen to your little NATO friends that say they care so much about you.
Hello.
Half of them probably
Thank
didn't even
you
pinpoint
for the
Ukraine on
first
the map
chat.
before all this happened. Special operation. Are you kidding me? You mean the one where you said you were going to free us Ukrainians from all the neo-Nazis that rule our country? Yeah, because your country is run by neo-Nazis and fascists. Zelensky is literally Jewish, descended from Holocaust victims, and you're calling him a Nazi. There were Jews sympathetic to the Nazis in World War II as well, and plus it's not like he's a super devout practicing Jew. You guys literally just call anything you don't like a Nazi or a fascist. Yeah, because we fought against Nazis and neo-fascists, so we know how to call them out. Well, then you're just really bad at it. Oh, don't act like you're so sweet and innocent. Your country was riddled with corruption since independence, and your politicians have been known on record for numerous bribery scandals involving oligarchs and the mafia.
Okay, so this is all true. This is all true. Yeah, I saw the robot. Yeah, is that an AI? What? All right, well, hey, welcome to the chat. Love AIs. Anyways, yeah, this is all true though. This is all true. Like, Ukraine has had lots of corruption. It's basically been in it since its foundation. Russia has used that to basically claim that they are doing right by them and trying to just kind of stabilize and add some kind of liberty, but this is still wild. I like this. This guy's kind of wild. This is geography now, by the way. He doesn't have a lot of views, but pretty cool.
In 2018, the Council of Europe even listed you as like the most corrupt country in Europe. Yeah, after you being #1. Yeah, we've had our corruption and drama. Thankfully, we're going through a corruption purge right now. In any case, most of our corrupt leaders were tied to former Soviet nomenclatura, which tied back to you anyway. Back to us? You're the one that totally went back on half of the agreements that we made in the 90s after your independence. Lisbon Protocol, Budapest Memorandum, the Russia-Ukraine Friendship Treaty. What are you talking about? You broke them. In fact, part of our agreement was for you to...
Yeah, look at this. This is part of their agreement. Look at this.
Formally acknowledge us and promise to never attack us after we gave our nuclear weapons back to you in the Budapest Memorandum, which quite...
Yeah. So Ukraine at a certain point was basically coerced into giving its nuclear weapons to Russia in exchange for peace. And guess who told them that was a good idea? Not me personally. The United States and UK. Both of them basically showed up and said, listen, Ukraine, it's all right. We got your back, bro. If anything happens, I'm going to be right there. I'm going to be right there. I'm going to have your back, man. And they said, are you sure? Because, like, I don't trust this Russia guy. And we said, yeah, man, it's going to be fine. Russia's not going to break its word. Like, then he'd have to deal with us. And then we weakened ourselves to the point where he was like, nah, who cares about that?
Frankly, may have been one of...
Like, literally think about this. The U.S. basically is, like, tearing itself apart with this whole political, like, you know, extremism thing. Like, literally, we've got January 6th white terrorism kind of bullshit going on. England literally pulled out of the European Union with the whole Brexit nonsense. And, by the way, Russia's been involved in all of this. They have little Russia bots that are just sneaking around, basically throwing up, like, little facts and hand signs everywhere. Like, they literally crippled two of the people that basically influenced this entire policy. They can't hand you all the nuclear weapons and then 20 years later threaten them with the potentially. Yeah. Look, again, it's just wild. This is just
one of
wild.
our biggest mistakes in retrospect. Yeah, never attack except in the case of self-defense, otherwise in accordance with the Charter of the UN, which is why we had to initiate on your attacks on ethnic Russians after the Euromaidan protests led to anti-Russian sentiments and killings in the Donbas and Crimean regions. Oh, okay. You want to bring this back to 2014? Okay, you want to do this? Okay, let's do it. Going back to the Yanukovych years? Yeah, we hated him. He was your little dictator puppet that refused to sign the EU Association of Free Trade Agreement, calling for violent action against the protesters. Some of your people hated him. There were also pro-Yanukovych protests as well, and your government was just as violent against them. Yeah, not at all to the same scale, and then you used this as a conduit to justify your invasions of our east and south regions in the Donbas and Crimea. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, this has been going on for a while, but basically the idea here is at a certain point they had a president. The president wanted to do relations with the European Union. Any kind of pro-democracy relations in Ukraine or any part of that kind of like Soviet bloc or the former Soviet bloc is basically threatening to Russia, because Russia knows that they would rather have those countries dependent on them for their economy than dependent on Europe. And Ukraine has been stuck in the middle of that basically their entire lives.
These primarily ethnic Russians wanted us to help. There's a reason they became separatists. I mean, think about it. They didn't like all the corrupt policies that your government was either forcing upon them or neglected upon them, which pretty much started immediately after your independence. Hell, you closed down half of all the state-owned factories in the Donbass, and then they became a gray industrial wasteland. Okay, yes, in the earlier years, we probably could have put more focus on building those areas up. Yeah, you could have. But during independence, every single one of those areas voted to become integrated with Ukraine and break up with the former USSR. They became an agreed part of our country. Yeah, there are so many illegitimacies with all those actions, like the traitorous Khrushchev who handed over Crimea in '54 from the Russian SFSR to the Ukraine SSR. I mean, there were only like, what, 13 out of the 27 members of the Soviet Presidium that were present. It was unconstitutional. No, it was handed over because it made sense. Our country is literally connected to them via peninsula. We also have a much longer history and culture tied into that region with our Zaporizhian Cossacks that interacted with the locals when they were under the Tatar Khanate. I mean, guys, can I?
Okay, so again, this is what I'm saying. They have a culture of their own. It is separate from Russia. There's a lot of language similarities. There's a lot of cultural similarities, but it's still its own people. And that's all they've been trying to establish is like, where is the line and how do I keep you from crossing it?
Can I say something? I mean, most of us ethnic Tatars were deported during the Soviet... Not now. I mean, how can you even call it your country when you neglect it and the people want separation calling us in? That doesn't mean it's your country. I'm not claiming it's my country. I'm saying that it's a region that is asking for our intervention to separate from you. Okay, first of all, no, not everybody in those regions were asking for your intervention. Second, even if they were, that's not your prerogative to intervene or invade. You agreed to accept our borders upon the memorandum, and it's still our country. Yeah, is it really though when you become the suspiciously aggressive one by disregarding our diplomacy, by entertaining agreements with the neo-colonialists like the EU and NATO? I'm the aggressive one? When did I ever attack you? Not directly me, but you agreed to give all citizens, regardless of nationality or other differences, equal rights and freedoms, which you've denied many in the Donbass, so we take that as breaking the Belozheva Accords. Plus, you're really...
Again, they're basically... I don't want to throw this out there, but this is all just a lot of bullshit. And it's all from the Russians. Like, they have been basically ramping up this idea that, like, there are Russians trapped in these areas of Ukraine and they're being discriminated against and the government is coming after them and blah, 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 blah. And then just using that as a pretense to invade and essentially say, like, we're stepping in and we're fixing things here. And they're not. They just want to expand their territory and they just need an excuse.
Cozying up to those neo-imperialists, the NATO and the EU. They want to make you their little slave, especially after all the war debt that you'll incur. Who's to say that they won't try to make you attack us? Seriously, suddenly now you want to act like you're some kind of advocate for equal rights amongst marginalized groups? Oh, but in this case you would because they're ethnic Russians, so that makes sense. Secondly, seriously, you really think I would attack you? Yeah, they broke the agreement during the Gorbachev-Bush meetings in which NATO was not to expand any further east after the unification of East and West Germany. Now they've completely encroached upon our territory, even touching our borders in like the Baltics. How is that?
Yeah. So again, it's all about it's just all about this bullshit again. NATO versus Russia. We've been antagonistic against Russia basically since the end of World War II. There's been some periods where we haven't been so antagonistic, but it's all about trying to keep our policies separate from their policies and keep the whole circle going the way that it's been going. It's all about maintaining the status quo. Russia doesn't want to lose its position as the like number one antagonist, but at the same time, they don't want to have NATO expand to the point where they become a legitimate threat, right? Are they already a legitimate threat? Yeah, probably. Yeah. But before the US invaded along with the rest of the Allies after World War I during the Russian Civil War. Yeah, look, this has been going on for a long time. Like, the only reason I said the end of World War II is because that was the last time we were kind of friendly. Technically, I guess you could say the end of the Cold War, we were kind of friendly, but not so much. Speaking of which, Heineken, drop it. Drop the Heineken. Don't drink Heineken anymore. Heineken has been doing business with Russia behind everyone's back. All right, so Heineken. All right, because Heineken has basically stayed in Russia and decided that they're going to replace all the brands that dropped out. So if you're still drinking Heineken, if you still support Heineken, get out. I don't want you here.
That not concerning to you.
But also, please come back and follow and subscribe. Thank you. I love you. Bye.
That actually wasn't part of the agreement. Okay, although the thought was brought up and talked about, there was no statement or paperwork solidifying or agreeing upon that claim. Please bring it up if you would like. Show us. Show us where in the statements does it say that it's not allowed. Plus, every member of NATO voted to join and was assessed by the current members. Nobody was forced to join NATO. And quite frankly, most of the Warsaw Pact knew what it was like to be under your sphere of influence and switched right away. What do you think that says about you? You were pretty much in the same boat as us. And at the end of the day, NATO hates us. And they keep creeping closer and closer. I mean, how do you think the US would feel if we had bases in Mexico and Canada surveilling everything and pointing missiles at their direction? They would probably react aggressively too. And you are getting closer to them. One day we truly believe the West wants to attack and take over Russia. It's already evident in the NATO expansion. We're pushed up against the wall. Oh my goodness.
Okay, look, here's the thing. I'm going to throw this out there. We are not looking to invade Russia. That being said, we would be pissed if the Russians suddenly started to, you know, put bases up in Canada, Mexico, Guatemala, like Cuba. Like, we literally had a Cuban Missile Crisis, right? Like, NATO literally is just trying to keep countries that want to be in, like, you know, the thing. But literally, Cuba. Like, we literally had a Cuban Missile Crisis. And Cuba wanted Russia just because we kept messing with it. We kept going there. Like we kept messing with Cuba. And Cuba was like, listen, man, I just want to live my life. I want to run my country the way I want to run it. And these assholes keep sending people to kill me. And eventually they were like, listen, can you just like help me out? Can you just send me like one missile? And like, I swear these people were going to shut up so fast. And we literally almost started World War III because of a tiny, tiny island just south of Florida. Like, I think literally we don't have a state smaller than Cuba. Maybe. Do we? Rhode Island's pretty small. It might be. Rhode Island might be bigger, smaller than Cuba. It's hard to tell. But my point is that outside of that, like literally, we were about to go to World War III over one of the dumbest islands. Not to mention we put them under embargo for like the last like 60 years. So Cuba's not a great story. But my point is that like if we had a bunch of bases right up against you know, any other country, they'd be getting pissed too. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan. That's all I'm saying, you know? So anyways, right now things have gotten a little darker for Ukraine, but we're gonna keep going. I want to see where this ends up.
You're actually trying to victimize yourself right now. Okay, you are paranoid, clearly. Really? Because we know what it's like to dissolve and give the West a chance. We tried that in the 90s and it blew up in our faces. Everybody in the West was like trying to pick at Russia like vultures on a dying corpse. We were struggling and suffering at the hands of the supposed fake smiling West, and soon...
See, thank you for calling me out on that. You're absolutely right. Cuba is much bigger than Florida. It has to be. Oh God, you guys, you gotta keep me in check, guys. Don't let me just spin off like that. You know,
You will too. We do what we do and say what we say because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. I know what it's like to be under you for 400 years, and at this point, anything is better.
It's rough.
This isn't even about 2022 or 2014 or 2008 or 1991, is it? Yeah, first thing I can agree with you on. Ultimately, why are you acting this way? Just so against us? Because it's like you don't even see us as Ukraine. It's like you just see us as like an extension of Greater Russia. Yeah, well, I mean, the Treaty of Pereyaslav in 1654 kind of meant something. It was kind of like a big unifying moment. Well, yeah.
Oh, dear God. Leviticus, no, it's a joke. No, it is not. No, God, no.
On paper, our Ukrainian Cossacks pledged allegiance to the Tsar of Russia during all those complicated wars with the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. That didn't mean we lost our sense of being Ukrainian. Yeah, but we are East Slavs. We're all descended from the same ancestry. We're supposed to be family. But you can't just say that. Yes, we have the same roots, but you guys went off and became something completely different. Oh my God, yeah, like minute, minuscule differences. No, like an entire plethora of differences. For one, we speak a different language. Yeah, within the same East Slavic branch of languages related to ours. You guys can...
Hold on. This is basically like saying Italian and French are the same language because they're both Romance languages. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Romance just means it originated in Rome, but because I speak Spanish does not mean I speak French. I speak French because I took French in school. Right? Je parle français, mais seulement un peu. That's it. And you get that from high school. All right? Now, I got my Spanish from Colombia, but I did not get French just because, you know, I know Spanish, right? It made it easier, I will tell you that. And Italian is super easy too. Portuguese, slightly harder, but I can read it. I just can't, like, hear it. English is rough. I mean, English is from Europe, but English has like a whole bunch of gibberish built in. I'm gonna be honest, as someone that learned English as a second language, English is a nonsense language. Like there's a lot of just random shit thrown into English. Like, not to be mean, you know, not to be mean to anybody. I'm using that language right now, so you know, it's not like totally without use, but like it's a nonsense language. There's literally random bullshit built into English. They have like, you know, some water between them and some other crazy people. I mean, a lot of English comes from German. It's a lot of Germanic language, a lot of Swedish.
barely understand us when we talk. In fact, we have more mutual intelligibility with the Polish language than with yours. Yeah, thanks to all those loan words that the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth put on you, which worked out so well in the past. Seriously, like even culturally and like even phenotype-wise, you guys have had more cultural roots related to the Uralic and Ugric peoples, whereas we are more like Pannonian Basin, Eurasian, steppe, Western European influence. Okay, so yeah, you had Zaporizhian Cossacks, we had Don Cossacks. Your Vishivankas look similar to our Rubakas. Your Petrikivka painting style is basically our Jostovo. Yeah, and where do you think you got half of all that stuff from? A lot of that was just stuff we started. Hell, people think borscht is a Russian dish. Fabergé eggs were basically just inspired from our
Borscht is Ukrainian? You learn something new every day.
funky designs. Let's just be honest though, from an outside perspective, most people couldn't even tell us apart. Yeah, because you spent centuries Russifying everything you came in contact with. Most of the republics didn't even have a choice, and many of their populations were either displaced or don't even get started on the Holodomor. Okay, yes, we know that the Stalin years were messed up, and most Russians acknowledge that, but we have to go back to the roots. No, you can't just keep throwing the East Slav Brotherhood thing. It's like, from the very onset of your Moscovia or Proto-Russian identity, it's like your leaders frivolously studied the past and tried to recreate some kind of like new...
So actually seeing it like this has actually helped me put it a little more into context. This is just an abusive relationship. That's what it is. I should have known. Like, basically what we have here is one side is convinced that if we could only just go back, if we could just, you know, start over, like, I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean to be... Hold on. Let me get into character. Hold on. Let me do this. So, Russia looks at Ukraine and says, "Ukraine, baby, I love you." Right? I didn't mean it that time when I overstepped your boundaries. Look, I want things to go back to the way they were. I want to be the way that we used to be. You know, why can't we just go back to that? And Ukraine is like, listen, man, I've set my boundaries. This is it. Like, I need my space. I need to be who I am. And Ukraine is like, but wasn't it so much better when we were both in one house, when we were both under one roof, when we were both like wonderful and together and loving and da 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 da. It's an abusive relationship. It's an abusive relationship of what it is. And Russia keeps coming back. They keep trying to force them to submit. And we're basically just stuck with, this bullshit. It's terrible. This is terrible. But this is what it is. This is the war in Ukraine. This is actually a really great summary. I'm actually glad we caught
Roman
up like
Empire.
this.
You even put a version of the Byzantine double-headed eagle on your coat of arms, and the word Tsar is just a derivative of Caesar. It's like we all started in the same place, but then you guys just went off and became this huge monster. We are not the monster. The West is the imperialist, and we fear that they will just make you more and more of our enemy as they take your life away from you. You fear that they will take life away from us? I mean, that's a whole other discussion, but I mean, honestly, it just kind of seems like your whole position is about regretting political decisions made in the past and deciding to delegitimizing them and wanting to go back on what was already established.
That's it.
Because sometimes you have to fix what was wrongly established. It was never broken. Yes, it was!
Who's this?
So, like, can you guys, like, ever be friends again?
That's great. All right, if you guys want to check that out, that's Geography Now. I like that channel. All right, but that was a good recap. So, anyways, that brings us to today. We're a year out from the beginning of the war. There's been losses on both sides. Russia at some point stepped up their recruitment drive to the point where they introduced thousands, if not tens of thousands of new soldiers into the war. Ukraine, even though it had a lot of early successes, is now starting to feel that drain. They're starting to feel that, just like that effect of just a long, drawn out war. Yeah, I actually can. Thank you for reminding me about that link. Oh, that was the sound. It was playing this whole time. That was why I was like, what is that cinematic noise? There we go. Thank you, actually. This is great. Is this just this past week? Thank you. Okay, cool. So this is what I was talking about with the maps. You can actually tell like all of this part down here. This all used to be Ukrainian. I think also up to here. That's all now Russian territory. At a certain point, they were also encroaching in from the north. That's not happening as much anymore. Over here, I think is Belarus. So let's take a look at how this is going. This is the last week. See, Russia, China, and South Africa hold joint military naval exercises. I didn't know South Africa was a part of that. That's scary. I'm not sure I like that. Andrei Mordachev is appointed commander of Russia's Central Military District. Right. And so in part of the little wrap up I was doing, or the recap, there's been a lot of military officials on Russia's side that have had some unfortunate accidents. Who knows how they happened, but, some of the top leadership is kind of clumsy, I guess. Well, with rooftops and stairs and stuff. It happens to the best of us. But, c'est la vie. All right, what is this? Belarus implements more union state integration programs to unite with Russia. Turkey says Finland fulfills all requirements to join NATO. Nice. That's good news. Wow, this is actually really useful. Thank you for this, General. Yeah, so this is basically how things are going as of this week, as of a year in. We have Belarus literally basically planning out an invasion with Russia. Eventually, I'm assuming sometime in the next, this has from day one. That's pretty cool. I'm not going to go all the way back to day one, though. But eventually, Belarus is probably going to become a nice way for Russia to just kind of move its troops in and then down. That way they can kind of have like a, big encircling motion, just get them from all angles. But really, I think what's really most dangerous is what they were starting to talk about China, and it shows Moldova too. Yeah, and Moldova, basically, Russia has decided that Moldova no longer has borders. It seems to be their thing, just kind of ignoring boundaries, which is a shitty thing to do for anyone, not just countries. I'm just throwing that out there. Respect people's boundaries. He's deployed all the Russia plans on transforming Mariupol into a Russian model city. Oh boy. This is when Biden showed up. Biden showed up in what was this? February 23rd, President's Day. Showed up in Kiev totally unannounced, basically saying we stand with Ukraine, like it's, just how it is. China denies American claims that they plan on selling weapons to Russia. The United States is planning on basically releasing sensitive information that would show that the Chinese are about to sell weapons to Russia. I don't like the sound of that because it sounds like we're just kind of making more enemies. But at the same time, I didn't tell the Chinese to sell the weapons to Russia. Like, I'm not telling them to make those alliances. Like, we're just gearing up in such a shitty way. I hope this doesn't get worse than it already is. But it probably will. It gets worse before it gets better. Let's see. Chinese and Russian top officials meet in Moscow. Putin blames the West for escalating the war in his State of the Nation speech, which again is literally just by showing up. Russia suspends its participation in the... Yeah, so Russia has officially decided that they don't need to de-escalate in nuclear weapons. In fact, they probably need more nuclear weapons. I didn't say they're making more. I just said they decided to stop limiting themselves. Which also means that there's a good chance that they either are going to stick to the number they have, or they, are just going to kind of start seeing what they can strap those missiles onto. Scary stuff. God, I can't believe we're 1 year out from this. This is insane. Yep. Poland learned from World War II. They're starting their border here. They're literally fortifying it because they don't want Russians coming in. And they've stated as much. It's against Russia. The Wagner Group accused Russia of mistreating Wagner forces. That's probably because while the Wagner Group has been the one basically getting all the results, they aren't acknowledged as official part of the Russian military. And part of the reason why they're not acknowledged is because if they were to be acknowledged, it would also mean that Russia has to basically admit that they committed war crimes. Because the Wagner Group has been committing war crimes in lots of countries, breaking lots of international treaties as a private military group. And the second that they get officially recognized, Russia also has to take responsibility for all their actions. And we've covered the Wagner Group before, but it's a mess over there. Where's this going? British anti-war activists paint a flag outside of the Russian embassy. Yep, saw that. The UK warns of a renewed Russian offensive. Several explosions in Mariupol. Yep. They're trying to take it back, but I think that's mostly just people just in the city itself. Is that it? Wow. Yeah, so they have it all the way from day one. This is actually really interesting. Thank you for bringing me this Vologda mapping. Loved it. Loved it. So, right. Biden made a surprise visit. And here we go.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday, he received a stark reminder of what life is like on the ground in this country. An air raid siren went off, as they do nearly every day here in Kyiv, leading to a rather tense moment for the two presidents. The New York Times later reported, quote, "The alarm on Monday morning was triggered by a Russian MiG fighter jet taking off in
Hey,
Belarus,
thanks for the
which
follow.
borders Ukraine to
Always
the
love
north.
seeing a new
A
follower.
missile from a MiG fired from Belarus can hit a target in Kyiv in under 20 minutes, end quote. And that proximity to Ukraine, as well as Russia, puts Belarus in a unique situation. Unlike most of its neighbors after the fall.
So here's the thing. Belarus is essentially a puppet state for Russia. Not really my take on that. The president of Belarus was essentially elected because he is a Putin puppet. Just throwing that out there. Hi, I love Pokemon, so thanks for coming by. Anyways, Belarus is essentially just kind of a Russian puppet. This is taking it one step further. This isn't just like, I'm going to use Belarus to sneak in. This is, I'm taking Belarus.
All of the Soviet Union,
we'll get there.
Belarus grew closer to Russia. Putin, in turn, sees Belarus and Ukraine as rightfully belonging to Russia. Both countries were previously integrated into the USSR, and the Kremlin desperately wants to restore that empire. Now, these days, Putin is trying to strengthen those ties by attempting to lure Belarus into this war with Ukraine, meeting with Belarusian President Alexander
Lukashenko. Oh, my God. God, I love seeing Lukashenko. Total monster, by the way. Like, absolute dictator. Like, terrible human being. But you gotta just love him, right? He's just kind of got this like round kind of grandpa vibe going to him. The real problem though is that literally, I think the entire country actually protested when he was elected. I think he said he got an 88% election where like 88% of the population voted him in. And then literally about 80% of the population showed up to say, no, I did not. Like, you want to talk about rigged elections? Belarus is a prime example of that.
Lukashenko just last week. But we have just learned that Putin's plans for the small country don't end there. According to a document obtained by Yahoo News, which has not been independently verified by NBC News.
Yo, wait, what? We're counting on Yahoo News for this? All right, okay, all right.
Putin's government has plans to take full control over Belarus within a few years. Quote, according to the document issued in the fall of 2021, the end goal is the formation of a so-called union state of Russia and Belarus by no later than 2030. Michael Weiss broke this story for Yahoo News.
Oh,
He's
shit!
also host of Foreign Office, a podcast on intelligence and international security produced by the Free Russia Foundation and New Lines magazine. He joins me now. Michael, good to have you here. What exactly does this document tell us about Russia's plans for Belarus?
Well, it's important to remember, since the mid-1990s, the union state concept has existed and was indeed certified in the form of a treaty between Russia and Belarus. But it never really picked up steam. It was never fully implemented until around 2018.
So here's the thing. I can understand them working together. I can understand them wanting to form some kind of union, some kind of block, some kind of, like cooperative, right? It makes sense. Your countries are very close to each other. Your economies would benefit from some intermingling. It's the reason why we don't have a trade tax between Mexico and the United States. Like, we want Mexican goods to be able to come to the United States and vice versa without having to pay a whole bunch of extraneous like tariffs, taxes, etc. This is going a step beyond that. This is just saying like, hey, listen, it would be better if we just all listen to me, right? And like we've talked about the abusive relationship before, but this is Russia's abusive. This is Russia's abusive relationship, just taking it to the next level. Like, I need you. You need to be mine. I will have you.
Ambitions for all of Europe. This is 4 years after the annexation of Crimea and the outbreak of a Russian-backed and underwritten dirty war in Donbass, eastern Ukraine. This document, as you mentioned, was written by the presidential administration itself. This is Putin's inner sanctum. This is essentially kind of the White House. And not just the presidential administration, but the Presidential Directorate for Cross-Border Cooperation, which is a rather Orwellian name for what it really means, which is Russia's ability to project power and to influence operations, if not, as in the case of Belarus, try to mount some kind of creeping annexation of an next-door neighbor. So the countries on
Yeah, so basically Russia's like, hey, we need to protect our sovereignty, and to do that we need to protect our borders, and to do that we need to expand our borders. That's how they justify everything. That is literally their justification for the war in Ukraine. It's going to be their justification for their invasion of Belarus. And if it gets to it, it's going to be how they justify invading Poland. because that's what they want. And that's why Poland is not messing around. They're putting up little border defenses. They're starting to get themselves set up with like air defense stuff. Like they're going crazy here. Yeah, sure. Send me a Ukraine bid. I always love seeing them.
Under the purview of that directorate include all Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova. So with Ukraine, as we're seeing unfold, as you're seeing right there from Kyiv, this is an ongoing war of conquest.
Like, let me put it this way. I think what pisses me off is like, we've seen it before. It's not new. We know how this happens. We've seen it happen before. And what's really upsetting is the UN can't even do anything about it because Russia's part of the permanent members. Russia is one of the permanent members of the UN Security Council. So they are declaring that this is not something where the UN has to get involved with, mostly because they're the ones that get to make the choice. So they said, no, don't send anybody to stop me from committing atrocities. Let me do it. I want to.
To whatever Putin's idea of a renascent Russian empire through fire and steel. With respect to Belarus, one could argue it has already been a de facto vassal state of Russia for many, many years. Since 2020, when Alexander Lukashenko brutally suppressed a pro-democracy protest movement and, according to international monitors, stole an election. He's not the legitimate president of Belarus, according to the EU and the United States. He has had to lean on Putin even more so. He is a wholly owned subsidiary.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that think that he's not the president. Like I said, he had 88% vote for him in the most recent election, according to him. And then had literally about 80% of the population show up to deny that fact. Like, the streets were so crowded, people took pictures. You literally could not have driven or walked or anything like that. Like, yeah, this is like, if there was a picture for dictator in the dictionary, it would literally have Lukashenko in it. Or Putin, because at this point, like, synonymous.
He doesn't want, according
to
experts
let me take a look at this.
Consulted for this story, he doesn't want to forfeit his sovereignty completely. So he's finding himself in this predicament. Putin has prevailed upon him time and time again. We want Belarus to become a co-combatant in this war in Ukraine. Lukashenko has kicked the can down the street. But the real question is, how long can he afford to do that? And indeed, this document suggests in just a few years' time, there's not going to be an independent state of Belarus, really. This is going to be another colony of Russia.
Yeah.
I want to just put that map up so that people can see this, where Belarus is. It's west of Russia, north of Ukraine, but it borders Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, all former countries that were under Soviet influence that now border Russia. And as a result, Belarus is that much more influential in Vladimir Putin's hopes to sort of strengthen the space between.
Look, the whole point here is that Russia says, hey, listen, Belarus, help me take Ukraine. The second they do, then he's going to be like, hey, listen, Belarus, you know what would be really cool? You remember what happened to Ukraine? Why don't you just join us and then it won't happen to you? That's literally where we're going with this. That's like literally how this ends.
Western Europe and NATO and Russia.
Absolutely. And this document calls for the integration at all levels, Ali. It talks about installing pro-Russian elements in Belarus's elite political establishment, full military integration. So already you've got Russian garrisons in Belarus. You just mentioned they flew a MiG from Belarusian territory, posing a direct threat to Kyiv while President.
Okay, look, this is the last thing I have to say on this. I think we're actually going to move away from this in a little bit, but Putin worked for the KGB. His job before being dictator of a country was super spy. Okay, you have the Russian equivalent of James Bond as the leader of the country. He knows what he's doing. His entire goal is to basically like super spy his way into a war. And what that means is he's literally everything they said, putting in pro-Russian people on like the higher end of society, getting them into the government, starting to militarize the country, but also militarize it in a way where you can take it over without actually fighting their military. He's weakened people who would ally with the opposition. He literally assassinates people whenever he wants. Like literally, like how many reports have there been of people just literally sitting in a park in wherever, drinking a bottle of water and then dead, poisoned? Like, Putin is a super spy president. All right. And maybe that's hyping him up a bit. Maybe I'm making him sound really cool. I don't really care. What I'm trying to tell you is the danger with a super spy president is he knows the value of information. He knows how to manipulate information to make us weaker than we are. All right. Like right now, the United States is literally debating whether war with Russia is a good thing or a bad thing. Why? Because he's been spending years after years after years just kind of throwing in little trolls everywhere to literally influence our entire culture. And we know that because one, he's confessed to it. Two, we've literally had like national security officials show up and tell us that one of the biggest dangers to our country right now is basically international spies sneaking onto our social media. And like it's ridiculous shit like this where we just kind of like forget for a moment Putin is a super spy president. That's why we're having so much trouble with this war. He's a super spy president who manipulates information to basically cause international conflict. Now, hold on. I want to check out this video. You sent it to me. It was super cool. Where was it? Did I copy the link? Yes, I did. What's this? Christmas 2021. Christmas 2022. Oh boy. Did they make the lights? That's actually so cute. Oh. That's so sad. I hate this. No! No! You gotta give me some kind of warning. That's terrible. Hold on. What does this say? Can I get rid of this? How do I get rid of these clicky things? I hate technology. Oh my god. If your media doesn't tell you where this is all going, RT is available via VPN. This is literally Russian propaganda. You had me watch Russian propaganda. Oh my god. Oh, I love it. But this is what I'm saying. This is what Putin does. This is his information warfare. He literally just showed me one of the most heartbreaking ads for why you should be pro-Russian, essentially, right? Like, be pro-Russian, because if not, I'm going to be eating beans at minus 11 degrees. I'm so sorry, General. But yeah, like, literally, most of Europe is without like a sustainable power source. They've been trying to cut off Russian imports. Russia's been secretly, not so secretly, attacking pipelines, stuff like that. Hold on, I don't know. Is this more Russian propaganda? I don't know if I can handle more Russian propaganda. The point is, he's basically just attacking us from anywhere, from anywhere and everywhere that he can, right? And in this case, it's literally trying to just manipulate your feelings, saying like, you don't want to suffer for Ukraine, right? Like, what has Ukraine ever done for you? And that's how they get you. They get you with stuff like that, by trying to manipulate the way you're thinking, by trying to do like a little bit of social manipulation. They're trying to convince you that like, it's not really worth it for me to starve and freeze just so that another country can have their sovereignty. Like, who cares? Without really clicking that, like, it doesn't stop there. Poland knows that. They're arming their borders. Moldova's starting to figure that out. Here, hold on, real quick. Let's talk about Moldova. Moldova.
The economic ruptures caused by Russia's war in Ukraine triggered a string of street protests in Moldova over the past few months, and recently led to the collapse of the country's pro-European government. Another pro-Western Prime Minister, Doreen Rechen, took over on Thursday amid heightened security threats linked to the war next door. That's because the former Soviet Republic is strategically important to both Russia and Ukraine as the war rages on. Here's why. Moldova is a small landlocked country sandwiched between Romania in the west and Ukraine to the east. It has a population smaller than that of Chicago and the third lowest GDP per capita of any European country. Its already struggling economy has taken a hit since war broke out in Ukraine. Inflation has soared amid Moscow's decision to squeeze natural gas supplies, prompting a wave of street protests. And Russian attacks on the electrical grid in Ukraine have led to power cuts for its tiny neighbor, while an influx of Ukrainian refugees has strained Moldova's public services.
Yep.
The situation comes at a time when the country is cooperating closely with NATO and seeking to join the European Union.
It is on a real pro-reform, anti-corruption, and European...
And here's the other thing, too. Literally, this war just pushed all the countries in that area straight into NATO. Like, immediately, the second that Russia invaded Ukraine the second time, they said, get me into NATO yesterday. Like, yesterday.
This has worsened Moldova's relations with Russia. Some pro-Western politicians in Moldova and Ukraine have accused the Kremlin of planning a coup to destabilize the country. On February 9th, Ukraine's president said he had shared intelligence with his Moldovan counterpart about an alleged Russian scheme to topple her country's democratic system of government. A day later, Moldova's pro-Western government collapsed, citing the economic challenges brought on by the war. And not long after that, the country's president said she had confirmed details of Zelensky's statement and that Russia's plan included attacks on government buildings and taking hostages.
Vă asigur că instituțiile statului lucrează la prevenirea acestor provocări și țin situația sub control.
Russia dismissed the allegations as unfounded, saying Ukraine was attempting to draw Moldova into a confrontation with Moscow.
So, all right. So this is a he said, she said thing, apparently. Ukraine is saying, hey, Russia's coming for you. And Moldova's saying, yeah, they probably are. Yeah.
The US said it hadn't been able to independently confirm the alleged coup plot.
What, like her?
What I'll say about that is deeply concerning reports, certainly not outside the bounds of Russian behavior.
A destabilized Moldova is in Russia's interest, according to one analyst.
See, I think that's also the other problem. Now that Russia invaded Ukraine for the second time, and I know that that happened a year ago, it basically just opens the door for what else could they do? I don't know. Like, could they invade Japan? Probably not. But maybe. Sure, sounds believable. We were just looking just the other week at how they, like, basically took those islands from them. You know, like, nothing's really out of the bounds of reality for these people anymore. But destabilizing Moldova would be a pretty nice present for Putin.
And could pose a security threat to Western Ukraine. Russia has troops stationed in the breakaway region of Transnistria. The thin strip of land on Moldova's eastern border with Ukraine is run by pro-Russian separatists. If Ukraine had to allocate resources to counter that threat, it could diminish the chances of success in the southeast of the country, the analyst said.
Yeah, because again, it's all about how many angles are they coming at you from. So if they were to take Moldova, then they'd be able to come in from essentially every angle, and you'd be screwed. Ukraine would literally not be able to hold that off. So yeah, Moldova basically getting attacked. Poland preparing for attack. China looking to do business with Russia. Not great. Not great. Like, I'm not happy with any of this. This is not good news. I was hoping that after a year, I'd be able to give you guys like a little bit of good news. Not good news. Like, not good news at all. Here we go. And Leviticus, I saw what you were going to put up. I would talk about it too, but I just don't have the time to get into consent and rape and everything. You know, Jeffrey Epstein, flight logs, all that crap. It's good. It's good news, but I think it's just going to have to wait for next week.
Invasion of Ukraine. There's no real end in sight.
Or
right
we might do it a little later.
Intense fighting.
No.
Ukrainian President Zelensky is declaring that the war will end in 2023. I sat down with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin outside of his office at the Pentagon yesterday for his view on where the war stands, how he thinks it could end.
Okay.
When you look at this and you're making your assessments, do you think this ends with negotiations or does it end on the battlefield?
Most likely, it will end with some sort of negotiation. And what the Ukrainians are interested in is getting the Russians out of their sovereign territory.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably going to be their going in point. point, but
again, respect my boundaries. That's it. That's all they're asking for.
I'll let the Ukrainians speak for themselves. So.
Austin and I also discussed the threats that are posed by China and U.S.'s concerns about Beijing considering potentially providing Russia with lethal military assistance. Here's what he said. We heard recently the U.S. revealing some intelligence. They do believe China is preparing to provide potentially lethal assistance to Russia to help them in Ukraine. Tell us what you're seeing.
We've not seen any China provide any material assistance to Ukraine to Russia at this point. China hasn't taken that off the table for sure. I've engaged my counterpart early on and told him that this would be a very bad mistake if China were to do this. It would further complicate things.
And you think they're preparing to do that?
I can't speak for the Chinese. I mean, they have.
Look at that. See, he's trying to avoid it. He's like, listen, maybe they're going to, maybe they're not. Like, business is business is business is business. I think if anything, America's just pissed that someone's trying to muscle in on their business. Again, I've talked about it before on this channel. America's business is guns. It's war. Like, that's what we do. We've got the biggest military in the world. We spend the most on it for a reason. There's money in it. Like, it's an investment, and we are trying to recoup those costs. Now, I don't know how you do it by sending billions of dollars in tanks, but, like, apparently that's how. Look, I think ultimately the plan here is if we give enough weapons to the winners, then we get political favors in return. And those political favors are sometimes dealt in, like, war debt. And we were probably counting on war debt to pay for most things. But again, let's keep going. Let's see where this goes.
Tremendous capabilities. And so, again, if they were to do that, it would be ill-advised.
When it comes to that, if they do take that step and China does move to provide lethal assistance to Russia for this, what are the consequences going to look like for China?
Yeah.
Well, of course, there's reputational risk, and of course, I'm sure China would love to enjoy a good relationship with all the countries in Europe. And again, if you just look at the numbers of countries around the world,
what's the risk, man? What's the risk?
I think that what Russia has done is horrible. I mean, adding to that, I think it would be a very, very ill-advised step for China to take. So.
Would it significantly help Russia, though, if they did add that? How much of a blow would that be for the Ukrainians if Russia starts getting that kind of assistance from China?
Well, again, I don't want to get into hypotheticals, but it's clear that.
Hey, they're giving my enemies weapons that will kill my allies. That's going to be real bad for their reputation. Those are some real bad looks. Consequences, man. I know he can't say it, but, like, consequences. Like, you need consequences. Not like wow, that looks real bad for them, huh? I wonder how their moral compass is going to feel after that one.
If China has a lot of capability in terms of munitions and weapons, and if they provide substantial support to Russia,
it's terrible.
It prolongs the conflict.
With China, recently the tensions have gotten worse between the United States and China, especially after the U.S. shot down that surveillance balloon. You tried to call your Chinese counterpart, and they didn't answer.
Yeah, so Kaylin, the day that happened, my office reached out to his office to schedule a call, and they did not schedule the call.
Did that surprise you at all?
Not really. You've heard me say a number of times, Caitlin, that I think it's really, really important to make sure that we maintain lines of communication open. I think leaders,
you got to keep talking.
Need to be able to talk to each other to avoid misperceptions and manage crises. And so this is really important. And so we hope that Minister Wei will have a change of heart and schedule that call.
When was the last time you talked to him?
The last time that I talked to him was a couple of months ago. So.
Wow. The Secretary of Defense in the U.S. can't get your counterpart in China on the phone.
Again,
oh no!
I think it's important to
oh
It's
no!
not like we don't have any lines of communication open. You just saw Secretary Blinken talk to his counterpart in Munich, and so there are diplomatic lines of communication open. But I think for the military, it's really, really important that we maintain open lines of communication.
He hasn't talked to him in months.
The Chinese military.
He hasn't talked to him in months.
But it doesn't mean that there won't be one. So I think we'll continue to make sure that we stress.
Oh, this is not good.
And hopefully, Minister Wei will schedule that call. He knows where to find me.
He knows where to find you. When it comes to
again, this is just an escalation of conflicts. Like the military isn't talking to each other, which means that the U.S. military might do something, and then the Chinese military has no one to talk to figure it out. So they're gonna be pissed about it. They're gonna misunderstand, and then they're gonna do something, and then we're gonna take it as a retaliation, and then we're gonna get pissed off. Like, this is easy ways to war. Like, this is just so dumb. You know what? This kind of reminds me of like in Latin American culture we have these things called novelas. They're like soap operas. Just very, very long sequences of shows. And one of my biggest complaints about these things is that all of the problems are easily avoidable. All you need to do is talk to each other. And I've seen it carry over into American television too. It also happens in lots of your favorite TV shows where all of the problems could be resolved with a quick phone call. It's the same thing for most of the horror movies too. Every single horror movie, like, let's put it this way. My son's not old enough to watch horror movies with me, but when he is, I will give him the same advice that goes through my head every time I see a horror movie. Wow, they found the murderer. You know what would be a good idea? If they left right now and called the police. Like, communication. Just talk to the people. Talk it out. Like, it's just talks. Like, talk. That's all you need is just talking here. And because they're not, like, I'm telling you, there's gonna be more and more misunderstandings. We already had that misunderstanding with the balloon. I mean, not really. How much did we really misunderstand, right? Like, that thing's a spy balloon. It's there to spy. Like, we didn't really misunderstand anything there. But, like, we're gonna start, like, breaking this stuff, right? Yeah, when you hear footsteps, at home, you're alone, like, don't go over there. Don't try to find out who could possibly be in your home. Leave and call the police. Like, just, like, it's that easy. Turn on the lights first to make sure that, like, you see what's going on, but then, call the police.
To shooting down the balloon, what that looks like. There were questions about whether President Xi knew about exactly where the balloon was going, what it was.
All right. Look, the point here is China's causing consequences, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Biden visited Ukraine. Great look internationally, shitty look domestically. I'm just putting it out there. Like, he needs to go to Ohio before this whole thing just kind of blows up in his face. Because he still hasn't gone. That's it. That's all I'm saying about that. Like, he still hasn't gone. That's dumb. All right, so we had 2 videos we were going to check out. I'm just going to add them in at the end because why not? Shoom. All right, so we have.
Got a new show for y'all. Got a day.
And again, I want to be real centrist about this. So this is Leviticus's video. It's Conservative Twins talking about Jeffrey Epstein's Hollywood client flight logs. I'm really interested in this. I want to know who was on the planes. Where were they going? Where did the investigation go? On the other hand, the other tiny bit of news that we're going to talk about, we found more documents. There are more documents at Trump's house. Sorry, I almost said Biden. No, it's not his house. It's his office. Apparently, we found another box of documents, this time in Trump's office, months after this. So at this point, I don't even blame Trump anymore. At this point, I'm blaming the FBI for being so dumb that they haven't found all these things by now. I'm blaming the librarians for not auditing this thing and not figuring out that they're still missing documents. We can take a look at both of them. I'm gonna start with the Epstein one, to be honest. I kind of want to see where this is going.
Good show. Goddamn good show. Jeffrey Epstein. Is it Epstein or Epstein? I'm not Jewish. I don't know. Epstein. It's Jewish, right? Epstein.
I'm assuming since they're allowed on YouTube, this is not going to cause problems on Twitch. But again, it's the Conservative Twins on YouTube. If you guys want to check them out, go ahead. But Jeffrey Epstein, basically pedophile to the stars, like a pimp to the stars, whatever. He basically trafficked young women and had them serve the elite. Apparently, the flight logs have been released. I want to know who's in it, what's going on. So let's check this out.
Jewish. These damn Jews, man.
I'm not saying this. They're saying this. God, right after I said it was probably fine.
Well, the flight log to Epstein Island. Yeah. Now, let me put this out there. Yeah, we got the flight logs. Yeah, let me say this. When I do this, it means shut the fuck up. I want to say this before we go into the names that was on the flights. Now, this does not what? This.
He's got
this. It takes too long, man. You're making me nervous. This flight log does not prove guilt. It does prove guilt by association. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You hanging around with this dude at his island, you don't know what he's all about? I spend 5 minutes with somebody, I already know what they're about. You flying to his island?
Okay, this is actually a great point. It doesn't prove guilt. Like, it doesn't prove anything other than the fact that these people were on the plane. But you probably know what was going on. Like, I'm sorry. It'd be really, really hard for me to believe that you went to this island, you flew in this plane, you knew this man enough to, be participating in all this, and you also somehow didn't see that all the girls he was hanging around with just seemed to be of a questionable age and also possibly being coerced into being there and maybe even getting paid.
Yeah. So you're convicted by guilt of association. That's a fallacy, though. So if I'm on that damn flight log?
And he's also right. That is a fallacy. Being guilty by association is one of those fallacies where they're like, if all your friends are bad, so are you. Like, maybe not. But let's keep going.
Maybe you're just going to go take some photos or something, man. Don't mean you was in there messing with kids, man. Just like you said, man, guilt by association. Yeah, guilt. That's they like I'm in the house, right? I'm with my homeboy, right? He's doing some cocaine right there, right? I walk in the house. As soon as I go, hey man, what's that? And then the cops bust in, right? Hey, and it's FBI raid. They throw me on the ground. Hey, is that your cocaine? Man, I just got here. I just saw the cocaine. Is it yours? No, it ain't yours. You're guilty. Guilt by association. No, you shouldn't have had the nigga in your house. No, I went to his house. You shouldn't have been there. You know you're a sorry ass nigga.
Am I allowed to show this?
Dr. Jeffrey.
I think it's fine. I don't know. Bleep
Bill
this later.
George Mitchell. Alec Baldwin. Didn't see that coming. Ralph Finesse. George Hamilton. Dustin Hoffman. Oh, not Dustin Hoffman.
Wait, these are the people? Hold on.
I think I'm going to whatever. Back to Jeffrey. Check out this video. Put them all together. Bill Clinton.
Okay, so Bill Clinton, not great.
George Mitchell. Alec Baldwin. Didn't see that coming.
Alec Baldwin.
Ralph Finesse.
Oh no!
George Hamilton. Dustin Hoffman. Oh,
not Dustin Hoffman.
Elizabeth Hurley. Laura Hunton. Janice Dixon. Who the fuck is that? Elby Campbell. Christy Turlington.
All right, Henry Kissinger?
Kissinger. That dude look crazy.
What? What was he doing there? What is going on? Is this for real? Like, was he really there? What is he doing?
He does, man. Joan Rivers. I know she burning hell.
I could have seen that one coming.
Phil Collins. Phil Collins. Not Phil Collins.
Phil Collins? Like Phil Collins in The Air in the Night? Oh, man. So again, we don't know what this means. We just know that they were on the plane. They went to the place. You should be able to separate the art from the artist, etc., etc., etc. But this is not good looks. Like, not good looks. Maybe they only went once. Maybe they went that one time, saw what was going on, and said, listen, man, I don't ever want to go back. But it's not good. It's not looking good.
That's crazy. Simon LeBone. Charlie Rose. He looked creepy.
That's
Richard Branson. What?
I could have seen that coming.
Bushell. Tom Ford. Yeah, I could tell looking at him. Yeah. Vera Wang. Never heard of her. Nadia Borland. Who's that? Nice ass. No. Koo Stark. What kind of name is Koo Stark? Seth Green. Seth Green.
I could have seen that coming. Sorry, Seth Green, but like I could have seen that one coming. Again, like part of what I'm thinking is like they said it was a big party and like why don't you come and like hang out, you know? But it doesn't look good. Like it doesn't look good to be there. It doesn't look good to have been there. At the same time, like I know he was popular. I know he was in popular circles. Maybe the parties weren't so explicitly what we now know them to be. But again, it's one of those things like maybe you didn't figure it out the first time, but there's no way you didn't know by the second time. Like 5 minutes with this guy, 5 minutes at one of these parties, I think most people knew what was going on.
James Gunn, Dan Snyder, Steven Spielberg. Tom Hanks. Oh, man. Stephen Colbert. Yeah, that suit never fooled me.
Really? Wow, this just keeps getting deeper and deeper.
Kathy Griffin. Yeah, that makes sense. Oprah Winfrey. Jay-Z. Beyonce.
Oprah, Jay-Z, Beyonce. Who else was here?
Anthony Cledge.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't gotten to Prince Andrew. I guess it's because we already all know about Prince Andrew.
John Legend. Oh, my boy John Legend and Christy Teigen. Jim Carrey.
So again, we're not saying that all of these people participated in Jeffrey Epstein's services. We just know they went to the island and may or may not have
Steven Tyler,
been at one of the parties.
Ben Affleck. One of J-Lo went. Stephen Collins. Will Ferrell.
Why?
Eminem. What? Victor Salva. Mark
really?
Richter, Charlie Sheen. He's done it spreading AIDS.
Oh wow! No, yeah, I could seen that one.
Catherine Hudson, Gwen Stefani. Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga?
James Franco, Will Smith. Bet you smacking bitches down.
Oh come on! They're never gonna let that smacking thing go.
John Cusack, Anderson Cooper, Demi
Anderson Cooper.
Brian
What?
Affleck, never heard of. Meryl Streep, Wanda Sykes, Chelsea Handler. I figured that one. Michelle Wolf. Yeah, she's crazy. Michelle Wolf.
All right, so General, just so you know, the story is essentially Jeffrey Epstein at a certain point had a business that was a massage business where he would hire girls of a questionable age to massage clients in private. Then he asked for more than that. He got them to do more than that for his other clients and essentially just kept that going around. His wife, I think, what was her name? I'm thinking of all the wrong names right now, and I'm not saying them because if I did, probably be slander. But to be honest, I thought of everybody except for her. But anyways, his wife, and if somebody remembers her name and tries to in the chat, please like help me out here. His wife essentially was grooming these girls. She would tell them that it was all going to be okay, it was all going to be safe, and again, basically convinced them that it was just going to be a massage. And maybe the first time it was, but the second, the third, the fourth time it wasn't. And they basically trapped them there with promises of money and other stuff. But again, it's illegal because there's an age of consent for a reason. You know, you don't just like, you could scar someone permanently because they don't fully understand consent. And we've decided that you don't fully understand what consent is around the age of 18. That's like our social standard. There's some exceptions, like if you're close to the age of 18, like, you know, I think if you're 17, you can legally have sex with a 18-year-old in certain places, 16, 18 kind of thing, just because they're, you know, close enough in age and, you know, whatever it is. But socially, we've kind of just all come to the agreement that 18 is the legal age. When you start taking people younger than that and start adding all the grown-up aspects of sex, especially when you start throwing in things like compensated prostitution, essentially. Listen, all right, here's my opinion on prostitution. Prostitution should be legal. There shouldn't be all this like stigma around it, but it should also be regulated like any other business. And it should be something where the people offering the service are protected just as much as the people going out in search of it. Obviously, you shouldn't be out searching for prostitution services if you're in a committed relationship, but it's not up to me to tell you whether you should do that or not. That's part of the whole free business capitalism mentality, right? But if it was legal and there was kind of like a regulation kind of thing, we wouldn't have sex trafficking going on like this, because again, to run a brothel, a prostitution, whatever thing, you would need to verify everyone's identity, their age, their medical history, stuff like that. And we just wouldn't run into these problems. It would possibly still be happening, but again, we would be rooting it out and searching for it and not wasting our time on consenting adults maybe doing business with their bodies or not. But the point here is that it wasn't consenting adults, it was children. And they were manipulated by wealthy and powerful individuals into performing sexual acts, possibly mostly against their will. They all the ones that testified anyways, regret it, and they all hate what happened to them, and they're traumatized. But like the age isn't totally wholly important, but it was definitely like closer to 15 in most cases. But again, like some of them were incredibly young, you know, and again, anything under 18 is in that illegal range. And that's just how it should be. If you are looking for advice, the advice I give is it's not creepy if it is half your age plus 8. That's the way I've always looked at it because it just makes the most amount of sense.
Yeah, Pharrell Williams. Wow.
It's terrible, by the way.
Robert Downey Jr. Man, this is crazy as hell. Yeah, it's crazy. You know, Joan Rivers, she always talk down to pedos, though. I mean, who don't? Why'd she go then? Probably just a vacation. Yeah, she went on vacation. Probably had some work done, you know. You know, she's all in that, in that cosmetic surgery. Yeah, I heard this one story about Mick Jagger. This dude actually went to the hospital. Yeah, I remember that story. To pump a gallon of semen from his stomach. It wasn't a gallon of semen. It was like a pint of semen. A gallon of semen?
Right, that's so much. Wow.
They pumped a pint of semen.
I don't know if any of this is true or not. I haven't looked into these guys. I don't know how much fact checking they do.
Well, a pint is like a cup of milk. A cup? I think so.
All right, okay, hold on. This is devolving. I'm not gonna get into it. But again, that was a huge list. I can't believe that list came out, but that was a huge list. Again, we don't know what that proves. I don't know if that means that everybody was involved in the services. I highly doubt it. But they were right. That whole guilty by association thing. Like, you know, yeah, they didn't add Prince Andrew in there somehow. But again, they flew out to Prince Andrew. The island wasn't his only way of doing it. Another was basically like how referral network kind of thing. Like he would set it up so that like certain people would pass by his house or they would go to their houses. Like it was not great. But again, a lot of wealthy people on there, a lot of powerful people, a lot of people with reputations that they don't want to see, ruined. What, the Queen kicked out Prince Andrew? I don't know about that. But yeah, I think most of the royal family is pretty upset with Prince Andrew at this point. In other news, Trump just found a bunch of documents at his office. At this point, like I said, I'm more pissed at the librarians. We need an audit. We need to know where these documents are. If they are of like real importance to our nation, we need to find out where they are. And clearly, this is a procedural problem where we just need to figure out like what procedures are in place to make sure that this isn't happening all the time. Like, why do we keep losing our documents? So here, look.
Out of Washington, D.C., the Justice Department wants answers about a confusing chain of events that delayed the discovery of a box of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Sources say the contents were copied, emailed, moved to an off-site location before returning to the former president's office. Former president.
Okay, so see, this is not good looks. Like, don't go out and do that. That's like one of the sketchiest things I've ever heard of. They took classified documents, snuck out, copied them, came back. Like, no. There's a video of the funeral. Prince Andrew intentionally draws some flowers, and so you can bend down. No, I don't want to see that. But that totally sounds like Prince Andrew.
Searched just weeks earlier. Explanation for all of this now. CNN's Paula Reed live on Capitol Hill with more. Good morning to you. So what is this? What's going on here?
Well, Don, the special counsel investigators, they want to know why classified documents keep showing up at Mar-a-Lago as recently as December. That's nearly 2 years after Trump left office. And the big question for the special counsel is whether this is just a result of carelessness or if this is part of some sort of intentional effort to obstruct their investigation. We've learned from our reporting that they were specifically interested in a box that was uncovered by Trump lawyers in December. This box contained what was described to us as a handful of classified documents. But complicating matters is the fact that back in 2021, a young staffer was instructed to scan the contents of this box. She scanned it with her phone and put those documents on a laptop. Now, we've learned that after she scanned them, this box was sent to an off-site storage space and only recently returned to Mar-a-Lago, where it was uncovered in December in a memento closet where the former president keeps challenge coins and other mementos. Now, federal investigators now have the laptop. They have the box of...
Like, this is the weirdest little, like, conflict of interest. Like, okay, so now we found another box of documents. And this box of documents got scanned and then got brought back. Like, I don't know what is happening here.
And we've learned that in recent weeks, they also sat down with the staffer to ask what exactly happened here. How did she come into possession of these classified documents? Because they want to know why this box was not given to the Justice Department, how it conveniently eluded federal searches of that property, and whether the former president had any knowledge or anything to do with this.
There's a really interesting development, and that is, renowned conservative judge Michael Ludig is slamming Mike Pence for not only defying the special counsel Jack Smith subpoena, but also calling it unconstitutional and unprecedented. How significant is that to hear that from Ludig?
This is so interesting, Poppy, because of course this judge is a longtime Pence ally. This is someone who helped him work through the certification of the electoral results, called him a hero of democracy. So now the fact that he's coming out and he says, look, Pence doesn't have a chance in the world of defeating this subpoena from the special counsel, this is significant. Because Pence is arguing that he should be protected from this subpoena under the Constitution's speech or debate clause. Now that clause is supposed to protect legislators from any sort of law enforcement activity that covers their actual work in Congress. Pence argues that as president of the Senate, he should qualify. But this judge in the op-ed, he's very clear about how he feels. He says, look, Jack Smith's subpoena was neither politically motivated nor designed to strengthen President Biden's political hand in 2024. Thus, the jarring dissonance between the subpoena and Mr. Pence's characterization of it. It is Mr. Pence.
Yeah. So again, they're basically saying like, hey, this is a political attack on me. And they're just saying this is not political. We're literally having clerical issues and we're trying to figure out what's the problem. Like, where is this problem coming from?
Who was chosen to politicize the subpoena, not the DOJ. But I will also point out that the Wall Street Journal editorial board recently came out and had a completely different take. They argued that because of what Pence did on January 6th, he should be given the benefit of the doubt. So clearly, intelligent minds can disagree about the Pence subpoena, but the opinions that really matter will come from the courts, and this issue could go all the way to the Supreme Court.
You need like a treasure map to like some sort of something.
Tell me about it, Don.
Yeah, really though.
You telling me?
Paula has one in her office. McCarthy's defense for sharing 40,000 hours of...
Okay, so we've basically gotten the gist of the news for today. If I had to drop in some last bit of news, I'll throw in just like some last little random bits. Chinese companies are starting to move from producing things in China to starting to make them in Mexico. They found out that because shipping was so difficult during the pandemic, that they could actually bring down the shipping costs by just having the production happen in Mexico. The only problem is that they are going to have to deal with Mexican workers who are going to demand much more rights, freedoms, liberties, whatever, from the companies, right? The other bit of news is the United States Supreme Court is actually looking at, oh, wow, hold on. What's this? Well, there's a problem. You're watching CNN. This is all blah, 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 actually illegal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. We've kind of touched on the document thing before. I think both people need to be investigated. All right? I don't really care about who's doing what now. And we don't watch CNN all the time. We just watch CNN some of the times. But, again, I think Biden needs to be investigated. Trump needs to be investigated. We need to find out why these documents don't end up where they're supposed to be. All right? Because next to your truck is not a safe place. Scanned on a young staffer's phone and then put onto your laptop is also not a safe place. Like, I don't care if it's supposed to be declassified or not. Like, they should not be getting scanned on a young staffer's personal phone. Or her work phone. Well, maybe her work phone. Depends. But definitely not her work phone after the fact that they've already ended the presidency. Anyways, like I was saying, Mexico starting to become the new China, right? Everybody wants made in Mexico. I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know if it's going to be successful, but that's fine. It is what it is. And the Supreme Court actually recently just heard arguments on a case. We're not going to talk about it because I'm kind of out of time, but they just recently heard arguments on a case that actually maybe I can do a quick legal on this. Boom. Supreme Court could end the internet. We're not going to watch the whole thing. It's 20 minutes long. But essentially, it's called Gonzalez versus Google. You guys can look into it. It is very interesting. But essentially, what it is you get recommended something by Google, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, whatever. If you watch something, you then have a little thing that pops up on the side saying, we believe you would like XYZ, right? Gonzalez claims that that part where they're recommending something to you changes the internet, Google, YouTube, whatever, from being kind of like a bookstore where you could get anything you want to being more like a newspaper where you are being curated what you get, right? And once things start being curated, it stops having the protection of like, oh, we're just a publisher, like we can't take responsibility for the stuff on our platform. If this goes through, if Gonzalez wins, then essentially Google will stop recommending you things. They will stop using their data to recommend you things because doing so could hold them liable for whatever it is that pops up. So if, you know, let's say like right now, you guys see me, I'm putting up some videos. I'm showing you guys whatever I want to show you. If I show you guys some pornography, then that's my responsibility for having broken Twitch's terms of service. Under this law, if Gonzalez wins, yeah, it's section 230. Thank you, Carbonated. Yeah, if this were to get overturned, then essentially what would happen is that if I show you pornography on this channel, Twitch is the one that's responsible for it, and Twitch will have to pay for it. Now, what that means is that Twitch won't recommend you anybody because they don't want to risk recommending you something bad or something that you might disagree with. Because if you disagree with it enough, you might find it insulting, and then suddenly you want to report me, and instead of having a problem with me, you actually have a problem with Twitch or Facebook or YouTube or TikTok or whoever it is. But if Gonzalez wins, that's essentially what what the Gonzalez family wants. They want it to be known that the people that are putting it out there would basically be held responsible over the actual content makers. If Google, from Google's standpoint, what they have been saying is that if this goes through, then suddenly any personalized recommendation is invalid. They just wouldn't do it out of the risk of basically, you know, content moderation, recommendations, anything like that. They would just stop doing it because doing it would basically open them up to getting sued. That also means that if you were to look up something like a Mexican restaurant, you might end up getting suggestions in Mexico, not nearby, because again, they don't have a way to cater it to you anymore, because if they do, then they become publishers instead of just, you know, again, bookstores, essentially. Google argues that any kind of algorithm, any kind of thing like that is essentially neutral and doesn't have any way of guiding you. But if Google were to win, it would also open up stuff like the exact opposite. Like, let's say that you're really into terrorist videos. Let's say you really like ISIS propaganda. Again, this is not an ISIS propaganda channel. I am not promoting ISIS propaganda. I don't want anybody here to be a terrorist. Please don't be terrorists. But let's say that you like terrorist propaganda. Let's say you're really into the videos of people attacking other people and inflicting terror upon them. If this goes down the way that they want to, technically, you could find a website where you find terrorist propaganda. And then when you find that terrorist propaganda, it recommends you even more terrorist propaganda and keeps leading you down the path to further and further radicalization and further terrorism. On the other hand, not having it at all means that you could end up with just any old video. You'd find anything you want. You could find anything and you'd just be lost in a random sea of nonsense. So it's kind of a tricky situation. The Supreme Court literally has no idea what to do about it. Recently, if I can find just a quick thing to kind of make this a little simpler, because again, this gets really complicated. Google versus Gonzalez. Nobody's won. Nothing like that has happened. This is only 4 minutes, so. And again, you guys can criticize whatever news network I want. I don't really care. I just use them as a way to kind of inform you guys of the situation. I'm going to give you my opinion on it anyways, all right? Same with like Fox News. We now know that Fox News is Fox News, you know, Faux. They really need to change their name. That's the only way they're getting out of this Dominion lawsuit thing. But the point is, like, I don't really care what the news is coming from. I'm just using it to inform you guys of the situation, and then you're going to get my spin on it anyways.
Court is hearing arguments today in a case that could completely reshape the internet.
Gonzalez versus Google addresses whether or not tech companies should be held legally liable for harmful content promoted by their algorithms. People waited in line outside of the Supreme Court earlier today to hear the arguments in this case. It stems from the November 2015 terror attack in Paris, when Islamic State extremists carried out a series of coordinated shootings and bombings across the city. 23-year-old California college student Noemi Gonzalez was one of 130 people killed in the attack. Her family contends YouTube, a subsidiary of Google, acted as a recruiting platform for ISIS by recommending content related to the terrorist group in violation of U.S. laws.
Joining us now is Jeff Kosef. He is an associate professor in the Cyber Sciences Department at the U.S. Naval Academy. Joseph, at stake in this case is Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. I have heard this.
Look, all mainstream media is fake. I will give you that. Doesn't make the events fake though. They just all coordinate on what they're going to say. And it happens on conservative media too, by the way. Like literally, it happens all over the place. You find a talking point, you run with it. I mean, some of my talking points have been repeated by other people too.
Section 230.
But I like to be, I don't know, I like to be in the middle. Anyways, I hope they're going to talk about it. But yeah, so essentially they're saying Gonzalez versus Google. Google owning YouTube can essentially push anything they want onto your, you know, front page, to your recommended. And it could radicalize people. Like recommendations radicalize people. Recommendations, actually, on a completely different thing, recommendations are also incredibly harmful to mental health. Speaking of which, I do a mental health stream. It's using Minecraft. I'm still figuring it out. It's up there. But you guys can see episode 1. It's one of the things that I have back there. It's kind of fun. We're going to get more into it as we go. I'm going to talk about stuff. You mean politics 1.5? Yeah, there was kind of some politics in there. But it's mental health. I want it to be a mental health self-care kind of thing. It's interesting. Check it out. I play Minecraft while I talk about it because I know it's boring. But this is super interesting, all right? Because, again, it's about what's being recommended to you, right? And in some cases, Instagram, TikTok, some really unhealthy shit is being recommended. Like, some seriously unhealthy things. Like, literally, there's, like, these unrealistic body models, and like later you find out that they're using some insane editing to make themselves have like the skinniest waist and the biggest ass and like everything else. And you know, maybe the men in the chat might really enjoy that. You know, some of us are probably looking at it like, looks good, looks cool, but it can give this really unhealthy body image to women where they don't feel like they're good enough because their waist doesn't look like it's the size of a pinky, because you know they don't have the hourglass is so perfect and tight like, you know, these insanely heavily edited pictures and models, right? And you get recommended that, you get pushed that, and especially like young teenage girls get pushed this kind of stuff all over the place, and then they look at themselves in the mirror and go, why don't I look like that? And you know why? Because nobody looks like that. That's why. You can tell, like sometimes you can even look at those pictures and what you really want to do is you want to look at the background and it's kind of like this wavy, wobbly shape. Like, we know that it's edited, but again, it's harmful to your mental health. It can be harmful, like, in general with radicalization. Like, it depends. It depends on what we're talking about here. On the other hand, like I was saying, it could also mean that you'll never be able to just Google a local, fire shop without basically plugging in your address every time.
From parents whose children have been severely bullied and
Fire
ended
shop?
up harming themselves, even ending their lives. I've heard about it from
General
people who
store?
suffered because their children lost their lives buying drugs out of the internet. I've heard it in this terrorist context. Can you tell us what is Section 230?
So what Section
People are buying drugs on the internet? I'm just kidding. I know people are buying drugs on the internet. Come on. Come on. Look at me. I know people buy drugs on the internet. Silk Road. I know it all. I know people buy drugs on the internet. The internet was essentially made to buy drugs. One of the very first deals that was ever made over the internet was actually two college students buying weed from each other.
230 basically says is that if harmful, illegal, defamatory material is posted on the internet, the person who posted it will be legally responsible, but the platform where it was posted generally will not be legally responsible. So
there we go.
It shifts the burden from the platform to the poster.
It's an argument that on face makes sense. Google argues that Section 230 is essential to the services it provides because they say we're not posting that. Right. But they do have an algorithm, though, that can amplify that can continue to push forward harmful content. So how does Google and others argue that they are not responsible for that part of their algorithm or their responsibility?
Well, so the argument, which is still going on right now at the Supreme Court, what Google is basically saying is that to operate any website, any online platform, you have to use an algorithm these days. You have to prioritize certain content. And that given the vast scale of content that users post, that holding it responsible if some of that content that it prioritizes causes harm would make it very difficult to be able to operate a search engine or a YouTube or a social media site because there's just so much user content and it's just very difficult to know beforehand whether it's going to cause harm.
And let's say the court rules in favor of the Gonzalez family. How would that change what we see on the internet? And if you don't mind me asking.
Okay, so see, that's one side. One side is incredibly harmful. The other side is it is incredibly harmful, but also can we do anything about it? And Google says because there's so many people and so many people post so many things and they're posting it all the time, it's unrealistic. And to be fair, it is unrealistic. I think I saw a video talking about YouTube statistics at one point, and they were saying like, I don't want to over exaggerate this, but I think it was something like 4,000 hours of video gets put up essentially every day. Like, it's insane. It's insane the amount of new content that's being made constantly. So having to check all that, verify it, and then put it up is a lot. They've got a lot of automated systems to do that, but again, it's all algorithms that people are just losing faith in. They're losing trust in this actually doing what it is. Somebody sent me a video the other day. I think maybe I caught it on stream, maybe I didn't. I might have been able to get rid of it. I know that I certainly didn't upload the video later, but somebody sent me a video on stream, and halfway through, it's pornography. And I sat there and I was like, I thought that this wasn't allowed on YouTube. Turns out I was wrong. And again, YouTube's not going to find every instance of it. They're not going to find every bit of this, Yeah, I don't know if anybody saw it. I don't know if I actually caught it on stream or not. But yeah, somebody sent me a link here in the chat. It's just pornography. And I sat there and I was like, I didn't know that YouTube let this happen. But they can't check everything and things slip through the cracks.
Given, the conservative-leaning court, do you have any assumptions as to how this will go?
So the argument today has been.
I didn't get reported for it, so I'm guessing it turned out okay.
Having a really hard time figuring out where to draw the line. Some of the
but I didn't mean
really
to.
Uncomfortable with how broad the lower courts have interpreted Section 230, so they want to draw a narrower line, but they also recognize that there's.
On top of that, I think I actually managed to not actually show it because I think I opened a second window and it didn't actually take over the screen. It was fine. But the point is that, like, there's harmful shit literally everywhere.
Some practical difficulties in doing that. So they're really looking to the lawyers to help that. Now, in terms of what the impact could be if they were to say, any targeted content.
So anyways, these are the guys that are ready, or these are the men and women that are going to change the internet forever. All they have to do is make a decision. The only problem is they have literally no idea what they're doing. They literally don't understand what the internet is. They don't know what they're talking about. And they admitted it. They literally sat there and they said, nope, absolutely not. Oh, God. Yeah, of course she did. Yeah, but anyways, look. The point here is they don't know what they're talking about. They don't even know what the effects of their decision might be. They're looking for help. There's no one to help them. And this could decide literally the entire future of the internet. This could decide if I get recommended to you guys or not. If if having more views means that I get recommended, or if having less views means I get recommended, or if the tags I use mean that I'll show up for you guys, or if you can even search for me at all. Like, it sucks for small content creators. It sucks for small businesses. It sucks for pretty much anybody that doesn't know how to use Google beyond the basic Google function. Because technically you can cater Google search results to be better. But if you don't know how to do that, like, you're screwed. There's the easy one that's like, if you put quotes around certain words, then it looks for that specific phrasing of it, or like that order of words in something. But there's other things, like you could put like a colon, type in scholar or something like that, and then scholarly articles pop out. Google has like a list of it. I'm not pulling it up, but the point is, like, this could change absolutely everything about the way we know the modern internet to be, for good or for bad. We don't know. With that, it is time for me to go. We did a lot. We talked about a lot today. We talked about trains. We talked about Dominion. We talked about how Fox is getting their butts handed to them in that lawsuit. Literally, a law professor came out and said, like, it was just too good to be true. She was like, you literally could not make up a easier situation for the defense or for the prosecution. But Dominion getting lost, or Dominion is, just hammering it home. Yes, I'm ending. Yep. Goodbye. I'm just doing my little quick wrap up. So Dominion, but railroads, disaster. Biden should have done more. He didn't, but he should have. Trump really, really, really capitalized on this one. Again, like, Democrats are taking a fat L in Ohio, and they really didn't have to. It was supposed to be easy for them, and they just kind of messed it all up. Dumb. And then what was the last one? Ukraine. It's been a year, and honestly, it's not looking great. I wish it was a happier report. I wish I could tell you guys that the war is almost over, but things are just looking worse and worse. So, anyways, I hope that you guys do something nice for yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Go hug somebody. Say you love somebody. I don't know. Do something good for yourselves. If not for yourselves, then for someone you care about. But be nice. Be kind. Go out there and do some good. And I will see you guys next week. I might come back Wednesday. I'm doing a mental health stream Wednesday, or I might just do some of those at night. Because honestly, most of that's just me playing Minecraft. So if you guys want to check that out, check it out. But otherwise, take it easy. Thank you for stopping by.